The Open Meetings Act posted in the council chambers and accessible to members of the public. Roll call, please.
Granquist, Arns,
Here.
Webb,
Here.
McCarthy,
Here.
Beckman,
Here.
Jensen,
Here.
Langy,
Here.
Hildebrand,
Here.
I'm here also.
Mayor.
Before we start the budget overview, in which Randy will jump into that, we've got a couple things we want to talk about the process that we're utilizing this year. It's a little bit different than we've done in years past on how we're going to review the budget. And we'll kind of go into that here quickly so the public understands where we're coming from. This is a different process than we've done in the past. And so tonight, we've got from what we put out on our agenda to what we're actually doing tonight, we need to talk about a little bit so everybody's an understanding of what we're trying to do. Our wires got crossed a little bit about how we're going to set this meeting up, but the intent is to give us more time in review of our budget, which we haven't had in years past. Since it is July 1st, sometimes these meetings are added in August, and then we're making recommendations for that first week in September to approve the budget. This gives us a little more time to go through the budget, have eyes on the budget, and hopefully in the meantime, by allowing that time, it gives us an opportunity for more questions from the council, concerns from the public, and then opens it up for better transparency moving forward so it doesn't feel so forced. So Scott's going to kind of give us a brief overview of what tonight's meeting is going to look like.
No, Mayor, I think that's well said. I think the goal is to try to create the opportunity for plenty of time to review, to ask the hard questions, to make decisions about what should be left in, taken out. We have a beginning document here this evening to start those conversations. And as we should, we'll review that appropriately to see if the content is the wishes of the council, and we can make those changes appropriately. We have 3 meetings scheduled, July 1st, July 10th, and July 22nd, that are already set aside for this conversation to continue, to allow that input to continue, the dialogue back and forth with the community to find out the parts and pieces of this that we need to further scrutinize or to change or alter. And so we'll do that. Nothing precludes us from having additional meetings in the month of August as we lead up to that ultimate approval of the budget in September. So the goal is there'll be multiple opportunities to have input, multiple opportunities to bend the ear of your elected official or staff, ask hard questions, so that when we get to the finished product, it's been fully vetted in a manner that is worthy of the taxpayers' time and consideration and worthy of the constituents that each of the elected officials answer to. So that's the goal. So we're going to make that happen the best way that we know how, beginning tonight. Nothing that we're doing here tonight has any formality or finality in it. And I've used the term a couple times today. There's no blood oath being sworn today that what comes out of this hearing becomes the final product that ends up being approved ultimately by the mayor and city council in September. This is the beginning place for us to start that conversation, to show a first blush at what that might look like based on input from lots of folks, lots of input from elected officials, from citizens, from staff, trying to get a beginning point to start that conversation. So we'll do that tonight to the best of our ability. We'll go as far as we can with the time allotted. And whatever we don't get done or whatever isn't able to be finished tonight, we can simply carry on to any of those future meetings. So it will not be rushed. It will not be shortchanged by any stretch of the imagination. We will take the time to do due diligence with that all the way along the way. So with that being said, I mean, I think Randy wants to give kind of an overview of the condition of the finances of the city, and then we can look into each of the divisional budgets. Again, those can be set for formal approval somewhere down the line, so you don't have to feel like there isn't going to be opportunity to ask additional questions, make those changes, and alter anything that you feel being presented here today shouldn't be modified in some way, shape, or form. So we begin with the documents today, and we move forward from here. So with that backdrop, Mayor, is there anything else you want?
Yeah, Kylie, can you explain how the voting process will work tonight?
Yeah, so with what Mayor Clausen and City Administrator Scott Cordes explained tonight, what will happen is the division heads will present their budgets tonight. The action items taken on the budgets tonight will be a motion and a second to postpone the recommendations of the budgets to the July 22nd work session meetings. That will give the mayor and council times to give their inputs, give their recommendations, but no formal recommendation will be given tonight. That will be given at the July 22nd work session meeting. So after the presentations tonight, the formal recommendation will be to postpone the recommendation until the July 22nd work session meeting.
Is that clear? Okay. As much?
As well.
Okay. Go ahead and we can get started. Randy?
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah. This first,
Go ahead, Mr. Webb.
How can you help us today? Was that AI? They jumping in?
the first agenda item is to give an overview of some of the things that are impacting multiple budgets. There's three main ones, all personnel related. The preliminary budgets you have in front of you all include a 2.4% cost of living adjustment, or COLA. This is based on the most recent annual CPI increase at the time the budget instructions were issued on April 18th and reflects the March 1 CPI. We try to obtain preliminary COLAs from other similar cities and local governments, but that's always a hard thing to do because they're waiting to set their budget COLA and look at that, what other cities are doing. But we do. I did include some preliminary COLA information we have in the agenda packets. Hastings is looking at a 2.5% COLA, Grand Island 3%, Scottsbluff 3% for their non-union, and union COLA is yet to be determined. Blair 2%, Northeast Community College 3.25%, and Norfolk Public Schools 3.45%. The cost of our preliminary 2.4% COLA is $543,376, including $427,525 in the general fund. We also have some pension increases budgeted. LB 179 passed during the current legislative session requires an increase to police pension contributions of 2%. Goes from 7% to 9% effective October 1, 2025. LB 686 passed during the 2024 legislative session will increase the city's fire pension contributions 1% on October 1, 2025, another 1% on October 1, 2026. The city's personnel manual says no employee benefit shall be offered to police and fire employees that is unavailable for all other city employees. In order to keep pensions comparable between the employees, a 2% increase in pension contributions for all three pension plans is included in the budget. And that includes the general employees plan also. So in effect, we're doing 2% for the general employees not required by statutes, 2% for the police that is, 1% for the fire that is, and then advancing by a year in this budget, the 1% that we would be required to increase the city's fire pension contributions on October 1, 2026 to October 1, 2025. The increase in cost above what's required by the law, in other words, what LB 179 and 686 require, is $288,533, and that includes $206,561 in the general fund. Another significant personnel cost in this budget is due to the compensation study. On October 7th of 2024, the City Council authorized an agreement with Zelli LLC for a comp study for $40,000. Zelli recommended a number of comparability adjustments and these are included in the budget for a total cost of $235,638, including $175,404 in the general fund. Most of this, 84%, is fire and police. There's a Zelli rep here tonight to discuss the results of their study. I'm also going to talk about what we needed to do to the general fund to get a budget that we brought forward to you guys tonight. Lyle's got on the screen the general fund budget summary. And as you can see, there's a, can you hear me better now? As you can see, there's a
Thank you.
$941,670 or 17.36% reduction in fund balance in this preliminary budget. The city's largest general fund revenue source is sales tax, which for the past 5 years has consistently grown more than 6%. This year, that didn't happen. It may look like our taxes are growing significantly in this budget. If you look at that line item, it looks like our taxes are growing $4.7 million, but most of this is the extra 0.5% sales tax that voters approved for the police station renovation and expansion. And that's also included on the expenditure side for the police, and that's most of this $4,118,000 increase in police expenditures you see there. Sheila's probably going to talk about that a little bit more when she goes over the general fund revenue side. But excluding that additional 0.5-cent sales tax, which we started receiving in June of this year, we're actually budgeting a decline in sales tax. And when your largest revenue source is declining and you're used to it increasing, that puts significant pressure on the general fund. Another thing that happened last year was we incurred almost over $1.3 million in unbudgeted personnel settlements and related legal costs. We felt it was unrealistic to try and make up these unbudgeted costs in a single year, particularly with the declining sales tax revenue. We targeted an ending budgeted fund balance to try and get us back 1/5 of those unbudgeted personnel settlements each year, or $265,991 a year. That would allow us to have a ending fund balance that decreased by no more than 4/5 of the settlement amount, or $1,063,963. That results in a targeted ending fund balance staff was shooting for of $4,360,450. As you can see, our budget we brought for you tonight is a little bit above that. To get there, we had to do several things. The initial budget submitted by the division heads resulted in a fiscal year 25-26 ending fund balance of $2,161,000, which is about $2.2 million below our target. To reach the target balance, staff not only reduced their initial proposed expenditures, but we proposed revenue increases. In the budget memo, I state that we reduced initial proposed expenditures by $623,428. I realized today, as I was getting ready for this meeting, that I had looked at a spreadsheet that had both expenditure reductions and some revenue increases on it. The actual expenditure reductions are $490,928. On the revenue side, we budgeted $130,000 more for donations, which are for the ice bumper cars and Skyview trail lighting, a small contribution for the housing study, a 5% increase in permits, expected to raise $18,000, a 4% lodging occupation tax, expected to raise $400,000, a 0.5% increase in the NPPD lease revenue, which would require approval of the new pro agreement. But if that was approved, that would raise $190,756 annually. And we're also budgeting an increase in ambulance rates. We expect to bring in $100,000. Ambulance charges were already budgeted to increase, $100,000 due to increased usage. In fiscal year 23-24, we reduced the annual CHAF transfer to the general fund for streets. We'd been transferring $415,000 a year, and we reduced that $250,000 to pay for part of the annual debt service on $5 million of chaff bonds that were planned for street improvements. These bonds haven't been issued, and staff propose increasing this transfer back to the prior year amount of $415,000 annually. The annual transfer of general revenues to the capital projects fund was budgeted at $497,825, and that was eliminated this year primarily by utilizing excess transfers in the capital project fund. Those have been accumulated over a large number of years with the idea that equipment funded by general fund transfers, if it came in under budget, we set that aside in the capital projects fund to be utilized when equipment came in over budget. Since we budget conservatively and we sometimes add divisions to cover the overage from other budgeted funds, this account's grown over the years. We'd already planned to draw this down $100,000 annually through reduction of the annual transfer, but due to the budgeted shortfall, staff proposed that these funds all be utilized this year. As, of course, is a one-time thing we can do, but that's to help offset what we hope is one-time personnel settlements and hopefully a not permanent decrease in sales tax revenues. These changes bring budgeted general fund ending balance to the $4,482,743 I mentioned earlier, which is $122,293 above the staff proposed targeted ending fund balance. So that kind of sets the plate for what we're going to be talking about the rest of these budget review sessions.
Questions about that? Randy, can you go through each department and tell us the percentage of budget increase and kind of what's leading to those increases? Or if they're staying flat, what's kind of each department's asking for an increase in their budget?
The big budget increase you see is that police, which, as I mentioned, is due to the transfer of $4 million for the sales tax. Law requires, and I'm not sure why it's written that way, but statutes say you got to deposit your sales tax in the general fund, and a large expenditure like this would be made out of the capital projects fund. Fire is up 10.29%. I know they have a large comparability adjustment in their budget. The Parks and Rec is up 20%. Maybe would let Nate expound on that. I think that's made up of a number of items. That's the big divisions with big increases.
Well, we have presentations for each particular department coming up. They can probably go into that.
I just wanted the foundation of a
Pres-
starting point of an understanding of
Right.
what the increases are in each department.
So Randy, where are we at total? If you take, I mean, obviously you got the half-cent sales tax included up there, which puts everything at 14% increase. What's the actual if you took out the,
If you take out that half-cent sales tax, we are, expenditures without that big increase in police would be up about 2%, and the total revenue you're seeing there at 19.8% increase would be, what was that number, about 6.38%.
an overall increase without the expenditure for the police department is what percent? 2.
2%
So
approximately.
the traditional budget we used to do level 1, level 2, level 3, that would be a traditional level 2 budget you're presenting this year?
Yeah, if you go, we've changed those levels at times in the past, depending on things like inflation, but that would have probably been the level 2 budget, I believe, most of the time.
And an average year, I think it'd probably be a level 2. In some years, it could be a level 1 perhaps, but generally speaking, it'd be a level 2.
So a revenue neutral budget from carryover would be like would be 0%, and then so we're 2% above.
Yes, like I said, we'd set those levels at various, set those levels of expenditures at various amounts of reduction and increase over the years, depending on the particular circumstances. But
Okay.
yeah, and generally, that would be correct.
Okay.
Randy, could I get just a little clarification? That LB 179, that's going into effect, the police and fire pension is going from 7 to 9%. Do we have any control over that?
LB 179 is the police or the fire portion, I believe, and the other bill, LB
686,
686.
it's for the fire.
We don't have any control over either one of those unless we would reduce police and fire personnel costs. We have, all
Right.
first-class cities have to contribute those percentages to their police and fire pensions.
So we do need to increase that from 7 to 9% on those pensions. The question I guess I have, it says, no employee benefit shall be offered to police and fire employees that is unavailable for all other city employees. Are we then required to raise the pension from 7% to 9% to
Right.
all city employees?
I think you could change your personnel rules and not do that. The way we've interpreted the personnel rules, that would require us to, if we were going to raise the others 2%, we would raise the general employees 2%.
Thank you.
Randy, of roughly the 570,000 extra cost with fire, how much of it is because of that extra 2% we're giving?
I have that, but I don't have it right in front of me here. Hang on, I can probably find that. You don't
I
have
guess what
in
is
the
that
issue.
costing us extra to do that? So, right here, it says that the fire department's at 570, that 2%.
Why he's looking for that, Lyle. Traditionally, if you've been an employee here for 10 years, or less than 10 years, you're still moving over and up, you're still moving over in your pay scale now, correct?
That's correct. So it's, and Justin, you can talk about it if you want, but employees start 6 months later, they get an increase, a bump from an A to a B. Every year on that anniversary, it goes up until they're topped out at 7 steps.
So that's,
Eight
that's
steps.
every 6 months or every year?
Every year.
Every year,
So
okay.
6 months initially, a probationary period. Make sure it's the right fit for the employees in division. After that, it's 1 year after, henceforth after that.
So once you hit 10 years, you're
Once you get to 7.5 years,
7.5 years, okay.
you get, right, once you're top, we call that topped out, when you're at the highest grade there, then all you would get at that point is your COLA increase.
So if we're talking about employee packages overall, you got a 2.5% or 2.4% increase in COLA and a 2% increase in pension. Because you gotta do that across the board. So is that a 4.4% increase? I'm just,
Okay, restate that now.
okay, so I'm just trying to think of this, because we saw the expenditures.
Yep.
So if you've got a 2.4% increase and then a 2% increase to your pension, is that a 4.4% increase overall?
Well, you want to answer?
It's not an easy answer because it's the total compensation package.
Right.
The percentage contribution, the employee gets to contribute 2%, and then the city would match that extra 2%. And that's a pre-tax deduction. So it is a benefit, it is a cost to the city, but it works in a different way than COLA does for compensation, because that's just a percentage on salary. So it's not easy to say it's
So if
2
you took
plus
it,
2,
if you took
it's
it like a percentage on,
4%.
say it's 10% of your salary. So it'd be
Right.
2% of 10%. So if I was making 50,000 and it's a 10% investment, so 2,500 or 2.5% of 10% is what the contribute. So then it would boil down to like a 0.5%
Overall.
overall on the additional increase in your wages.
That's
I'm
why
just trying to,
the percentages are hard to track, especially numbers here into actual.
because I think it would benefit the
reality.
council to know what the overall percentage increase is in payroll, because you've got, well, you broke that out.
Yeah, he has it broken down for pension
So if you're looking at a
versus COLA.
2.4% and then a 0.5%, so is it like, are we looking more like a 3% increase in overall wage plus benefits?
Randy, do you want to speak to the number side of it?
I would say if we do the 2% pension increase like we have budgeted, plus a 2.4% COLA, that is a 4.4% increase in employee compensation.
So it's a 4 point,
And I have that number that,
It's just
Was-
a form of compensation because they don't receive that money for pension. It goes into their retirement fund. They don't use that as cash. So it's a different type of benefit for total compensation. It works,
yeah,
it's
they
a
probably
cost
won't
to the
receive that
city. Yeah,
in their pocket for a number
Yes.
of years, decades.
right.
So,
Yep.
so the 7%, the employee has to put 7% in as well, correct?
Correct.
And then we just match whatever they put in.
Correct.
But they have no choice, they have to put in 7%. No,
They don't
Okay.
have a choice to go less. Kylie, I'm looking at you, so if you want to speak to the
Yep,
differences
That is
there.
correct. So the only employees that are bound are police and fire, and that's required by state statutes. General employees are not required to contribute to their pension. If they choose to, they're required to put in a minimum of 2%. That's our pension company's requirement, but they are not required to put in a 7%.
I would say though, the vast majority do the max contribution because that's the smart way to do it. That's how you get your retirement money, so,
trust me, I
Yeah.
deal with it every single day of my life.
yeah.
So,
But they don't have to, the
right,
general.
okay, that's what I want to make sure
Yeah.
of. So then, that being the case, that would not equal a 4.4% increase
Right.
at all. It would be, we'd have to take
Right.
how much they're getting, we're paying in pensions, add on that to, so what's the new number, that gives us a
Yep.
dollar increase, and then the dollar
Yep.
increase in the 2.4 to give us a total dollar versus a new total dollar, and then you take that, and that gives you your number, which should be
what I said.
right around 3% is what I think, so, as well, so.
Did you find that, Randy? Did you get research done?
$66,616 is the cost of the fire going up, the extra 2%. That's total, both the 1% that's required to be done this year, plus the 1% that isn't required to be done until October 1 of 2026.
Repeat the number louder.
$66,616.
And that's related to LD 179?
Yeah, whatever that,
686? 686.
LB 179 was the police, and LB 6,
So pension and
686.
COLA, we're looking at a $750,000 increase to this year's budget.
The 2.4% COLA is in total costing us $543,000 and $427,525 in the general fund. That includes all the fringe benefits. That just isn't the salary.
That's just the COLA though, that's not with pension on top of that?
Yeah,
I'm
the
just trying to get
pension
my
would
mind
be
wrapped
on
around the
top.
overall increase in the budget for payroll. Is
the
that-
overall increase.
Because you've got also the LB 179 is a $288,000 increase or a $206,000 from the general fund. So if you, whatever number you're taking, I'm assuming the 288 is the overall expense, right? So that's around, so that's 300. And then if the 2.4% COLA is 550,000 or 540,000, that's where I'm getting that between
Yes. Yes, that would be the total.
$750,000 to $800,000 increase the overall budget for payroll, is what I'm trying to.
Yes, for the COLA and the pension.
And then we've got the comparability study. Jessica, that was a 200 and some thousand, so we could be looking at a $1 million increase to expenditures for payroll in this year's fiscal.
But just some clarification on that too. You actually have a 2% increase budgeted for the general and even individual departments. Isn't it only required for 1% for 2025, October 1, 2025, and then 1% for 2026? So do we need to add 2% this year? Or can we just simply add 1% and then 1% next year?
The police have to do 2% this year. Fire only has to do 1%. We had discussions about that and decided if the police were going to get 2%, it would be fair to give everybody 2%. But legally, we would only have to give the police 2% this year. The fire could
And
just get
city-
1% this year and the other 1% next year.
And
we
all
don't
other
have to
city
do-
employees could also be 1%.
Yeah, I suppose. What,
Okay.
Well, so my question on that, Randy, would be, if our personnel statute says we have to be consistent with police and fire, well, then is it fair, I mean, just looking at this from a different standpoint, is it fair to the fire department that they don't get 2% the first year? So, you know, we can say what's, you know, sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander kind of thing, you know, so saying that our city staff, non-police and non-fire, are gonna get 1-1 to match the fire department. The police are required by law to get 2% this year, but we could do 1-1 and still fall within our personnel statutes because we're not keeping police and fire the same. So why do we have to keep everybody else the same? I mean, so there's, I mean, you get what I'm saying? I mean, I know it's two different
I
laws,
think you
two
could
different
do that
bills.
within statute, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I know it would require a change in our personnel rulings, but I mean, I guess I'm missing how we're trying to be fair and equitable, but we're really, if we give police and we give staff 2% on the pension, well, then we're not being fair to the fire department. Somebody's gonna not be fair in this if we're looking at fair.
What we're proposing is 2% as of October 1 of 2025 for all three plans.
Oh, that's,
But that topic that you're talking about is why that's in the personnel manual, because of the fairness component.
okay.
That's the 288,000, is it, the 2%?
Oh, I thought we were doing 1-1. That's, well, the law says 1-1, right?
Frank just asked the question.
Well, no, I know,
Yeah.
I'll just stop.
Jeff, I think you raise a good point that why are we doing that is really to look out for equity of all the employees. Just because it's legally required, is that the right thing to do? So we look across the board. Just working for other organizations, it's pretty common that you see it match for other employee groups so that there's not disparity and it doesn't cause, you know, an angst or a rift between those groups. Because overall, they start comparing each other and who has the best benefits, why do they have the best benefits? And then it turns into other issues that could lead, it could be problematic. So we're looking at internal equity.
And I understand that, but I worked many, many years in a Fortune 5 company, and many years I had to look my employees in the eye and say, it's 1%, sorry. We don't have the income to do it.
Right.
And I'm looking at how many millions of dollars in property tax, you know, or $480,000 in property taxes, all these increases in taxes, and how do I go back to my constituents and say, oh, by the way,
Right.
what I did for my own business was, guess what? My staff, they didn't get an increase this year. they got paid holidays, an
Right.
increase in paid holidays. It was something that wouldn't affect me as badly. So, I mean, I get it, you know, I mean, I can totally get it, but, you know, being fiscally responsible, we have to look at, you know, and I'm all for, hey, if the staff says, hey, you know what, we want our money, I get that, I do too. I totally get it, I totally agree with fair and equitable, totally 100%. But then maybe we need to balance our budget somewhere else. Okay, so you have to figure that out as our department heads have to say, okay, I want my staff to get their money, so what am I gonna cut?
Right.
That's non-essential. So, I mean, that's, to me, we have to look at everything right now because I cannot go back to Ward 3 and tell them, oh, by the way, here's extra taxes that you're gonna have to incur for our
I think
city.
what Randy's saying, though, is that our policy prohibits us from not doing it equitably for our general employees and other employee groups, so we would
and
have
I
to
get-
change the
No,
policy.
and I get that,
Yeah.
but that's, but my whole point of bringing this up was not about the pension.
Sure.
I'm 100% for, if we're doing it for one, we do it for everybody. But, what, you know.
Find other ways to
We have to save other
money.
ways then. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's the bottom line is we have to figure out where we're gonna cut. I mean, we have to
Sure.
cut some, cause I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna shut up now before I.
That's okay.
Before I
No,
say
we
something I
get
don't
what
wanna
you're
say.
saying.
Thank
One
you.
of the most important things that an organization can do is hire the right people.
Absolutely.
And that equates to better communication, better leadership from bottom to top, that can hopefully pull every ounce of blood out of the turnip that you elected officials put forth in the budget to maximize full potential. Having a good package that we can offer to bring those employees in is an investment, basically, in trying to manage what the resources are that you elected officials put forth for us to deal with.
And I totally get that, you guys. I mean, trust me, I spent way too many years in the private sector to not understand. But I also spent plenty of years looking employees in the eye and telling them no.
Get it?
Because I have a choice. I can either service my community. So I was in the cable business, okay? So I can either all of our people can have cable or they can't. And you can have raises. But if they're not buying cable because we have a bad product, if people aren't coming to Norfolk because we don't have good roads, we don't have all the things we need to attract new businesses, well, guess what? Then we're gonna spiral downward. So, I mean, you know, that's what all of us are here, all of us, I mean, the staff, the police, everybody, we all understand that. So somewhere, I'm just saying somewhere we have to, and that's why I brought it up was it doesn't have to be COLA, but it could
Maybe
be
somewhere else.
And I
Yep.
think, I just wanna bring it up because you'll hear me say it probably every single time
It's
that
okay.
this is,
This is the first time, obviously,
Yep.
this is coming public, having these discussions, but this is not the first whack through the budget. that
Why,
we've
is your
been through.
microphone on? I don't.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I'll lean forward a little bit. Division heads brought forth a minimal budget to the best of their ability to operate it. It came through city administrator. It got hacked out even more, which none of that stuff is depicted in here. But that's taken place to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we can probably get into that if you want to at the appropriate point.
Right.
But we'll let you steer that conversation.
Jessica, can you speak on the compensation study that your department did? And
Yeah.
what came out of that?
So we were actually going to go into the comp study after Randy was done, and I do have the consultant here from Zell. Her name's Kate Abendroth. She came from Lincoln. They really, they own the project. They did the data, the research, and they worked with us to evaluate job descriptions, evaluate first-class city, and outside of that market as well, just to see if we're benchmarking things appropriately. So I don't want to speak for their project, which is why she's here. And so I will invite her up to the podium to give a rundown of that, so.
Hello, members of City Council. As Jessica said, my name is Kate Abendroth, and I am with Zell HR Solutions. I've had the opportunity to work with the city on this compensation analysis for several months, and have enjoyed getting to know your team members along the way. A compensation analysis is critical for organizations of all types and industries to ensure fair, competitive, and strategic pay structures align with a budget. Furthermore, utilizing a third party provides a non-biased, objective review of the information and data. And to achieve this, we worked closely with HR and department heads to review this project. Our analysis was based on a review of current job descriptions and responsibility centers. Then we had an extensive review against other first-class cities, as well as being benchmarked against additional salary survey data for positions and industries that are less common in a direct municipal comparison, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of market value. Once we had all of the market data, an analysis was conducted on internal equities within your current grade structure, allowing you all to make simple yet impactful adjustments to your position classification. I'm pleased to report that overall, the city is currently sitting in a relatively good spot in terms of pay for most positions. Furthermore, the city's matrix and increased policy and practices are generous, and you're probably most likely leading the sector in that regard, which is something to celebrate. However, the study did identify key areas where adjustments were necessary to ensure continued competitiveness and internal fairness. That will all be highlighted within each division, and I'll be around, obviously, to be able to answer any questions as each of those come to light. But in anticipation of the minimum wage increase from $13.50 to $15 on January 1, 2026, there will be a few necessary adjustments to some of those lower positions within the matrix to make sure that they're up to that mandated threshold. I thank you all for the time. I welcome any questions specifically about the project, but otherwise, again, I'll be here in order to answer any questions about the divisions as they all come up and speak.
I see that we have positions where we weren't paying enough or weren't in line with other, like, cities or occupations. Did you guys look at positions that we're paying that you thought we were paying too much?
We did look at the data in terms of percentiles, so figuring out a minimum to a maximum, and there are positions that fell below, at, right at, and above. Any position that I would say was above are your tenured individuals who have been here for a really long time, who are in like their final, step, that seventh step. Not necessarily overpaid, but they're paid for their tenure, which isn't always applicable in market data. That's really hard to see because of tenure. We usually see that recognized in different ways.
So with the information that you've given us, tenure was a part of the equation?
It was not.
It was not a part of the equation.
Tenure is something that is typically seen as being rewarded and recognized above and beyond. Tenure is utilized in the compensation data. We use a year of ranges of experience in terms of getting that data. But you have a lot of really tenured individuals who work here, and they're going to be on that very high side of that data. That's just how it's going to land. So some of those individuals, yes, they were on that high side of that data.
Do we have that? You have that in the report, what that is?
I don't have anything with me today in terms of specific numbers and whatnot, but we do have that data that has been given to the HR department.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think we'll probably, as we go through, we could probably
Yeah,
bring.
absolutely.
yeah.
Perfect.
So I guess, Randy, going through this budget analysis at the start of it, a review, the concerning things in my mind would be the fact that we eliminated the annual transfer to from general revenues to capital project fund of $497,000 to help meet this budget. And then there was a reduction from the general fund to streets for $250,000 for debt service on the $5 million bond that has not been issued, but we have continued to issue those funds. That's $750,000 off this year's budget. That wasn't it, but traditionally we usually issue each year to the, or we haven't always, but as the last couple of years, we've issued to that out of the annual budget for streets, and then transfers from the general revenues of the capital project fund. So that to me is a little bit, those two numbers are a little bit concerning because those are, maintenance and long-term projects, long-term care on roads, and our ability to finance debt service, long-term, so.
The elimination of the transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund this year is a one-time thing we can do because we had that money set aside in there to cover when we went over budget. And that, like I said, that had grown probably over decades. That shot is fired and that's done. We can't do that again. But it is not impacting our ability to fund the equipment we would normally purchase from general revenues. For the most part, that's large street equipment, but there's some park equipment in there and some other divisions occasionally. It's the big stuff that's over $100,000. The transfer going back to $415,000 from CHAF to the general fund is getting us back to where we were for a long period of time before we thought we were going to issue that $5 million of CHAF bonds. When we had the Citizens Committee for the police station expansion, as kind of an aside, they recommended that we, because there had been a lot of concern about that we not issue those bonds, and we haven't issued those bonds. So that transfer is not needed for debt service. If we didn't make it, you're correct that it would stay in the CHAF fund and be available for street expenditures, but it's just getting us back to where we were before we thought we were going to issue $5 million worth of bonds that we have not issued.
Okay. So would it be wise to make a recommendation to continue to discuss the budget overview, but maybe move this portion of the discussion to after item 15, so we can get started on departments coming up and discussing? Otherwise, we're probably gonna sit here for quite a while if we keep, but then we can move through 5 through 15 and then bring the budget overview back up again at the end after we hear from everybody. If that's, for time's sake, anyway. So Kylie, how do we go about doing that?
I think currently what we'll do is we'll wrap up this discussion, and right now we will,
Can we table it for an hour?
I'm going to make a motion to move 5 back.
There's no, actually, there's no motion with
So-
the budget overview. We can just open it.
so right now, this is just a discussion item. What we can do is we can decide to move this to the end of the discussions and go ahead and bring this discussion back after agenda item number 15.
And then we'll allow comment at that time on that. I think that'd be a good thing then, because we're,
At this point, you can go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and bring this discussion back after agenda item number 15.
I'll make a motion to bring item number 5 back
four,
behind.
item 4.
Agenda item 4.
Oh,
Or wait, would be 4 and 5, because that's the general fund budget. We want to talk about the general fund budget after we go through.
Yeah.
So maybe you're right, Frank, it'd be
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
make a motion to move items 4 and 5 at the end of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, a second.
All right, we will go ahead and do a verbal roll call for this. Arns,
Yes.
Webb,
Yeah.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, so we would be on to item number 6. We'll be reviewing or going over the administration budget. And looks like, Kylie, you gonna go over this?
I will.
Okay.
So this is going to start on page 23 for you.
Thank you, Kylie. That's it. Got it up.
So I will go ahead and start with personnel costs. Beginning with personnel costs, this fund increased by $176,405, or 5.95%. The increase is primarily driven by a proposed 2.4% cost of living adjustment, compensation study-related adjustments, and an increase in pension contributions from 7% to 9%, as Randy mentioned earlier. Additionally, the increase includes the addition of a part-time administrative assistant position. Moving on down to utilities and maintenance fund. This fund increased $23,850, or 13.29%. In line item 46, building, ground, and plant maintenance, office nameplates was added for $3,000. Door hardware replacement was added for $3,000, and the charging station subscription was added for $4,500, which would be for the continuation of the electric car charging stations at the front of our administration building. In line 48, office equipment maintenance, 6 new IT systems and software items were added, totaling $17,300. Code recodification and municipal code online software was removed, resulting in a $27,000 reduction. Overall, with these changes and general price increases across various current software subscriptions, this line item increased to $13,350. Moving on down to legislative affairs, this fund decreased by $15,445, or 7.43%, largely due to reductions in the travel and training budget. In line item 53, travel and training, the budget was reduced by $14,192, or 16.83%, through the removal of the mayor's monthly expenses, which was $2,400, recruiter training for $2,000, a reduction to the information systems training for $2,000, and a reduction to staff leadership training for $10,000. Moving to the next page, administration and overhead fund. This fund was reduced by $31,108, or 3.95%. Line 64, office supplies, increased by $10,750 with the addition of a training room projector for $3,500, a lapel microphone system for council chambers for $4,500, and employee nameplates for $500. Office furnishings also increased by $13,000 to help fund new dais chairs in council chambers as reflected by council members. A $12,600 decrease was realized through the routine rotation of computers and laptops for normal employees in mayor and council. Lastly, in line 67, legal fees, the budget was reduced by $3,500, leaving $500 to cover potential labor attorney expenses. Line 68, professional fees, was reduced by $41,883, or 6.79%, due to several adjustments. A $35,000 allocation for an OSHA consultant was removed, with $5,000 being redirected towards safety funds. Additionally, $10,000 was added for a strategic planning facilitator identified as a council priority during the retreat earlier this year. The flu vaccine expense was shifted from the admin budget to the group insurance fund, reducing this line item by $5,025. The $50,000 council priority allocation for the senior center was removed, with $25,000 of council priority dollars being reallocated towards Big Bang Boom. Funding for Norfolk Public Transportation increased by $15,000, with $25,000 of that total being supported by council priority dollars. Allocations for ballot issues and the Arts Council were removed, resulting in a $61,000 reduction. Meanwhile, ambulance billing costs increased by $10,000. This is not due to a rate increase, but a projected increase in net claim revenue over the next fiscal year. Moving down to government subsidies and transfers. Line item 77 decreased $8,800 due to an update in liquor license numbers and parking fine reductions. These fees are paid to us by the liquor license holders, which we then pay in full to the Norfolk Public Schools. Line item 78, transfers out, decreased $850,449, or 57.49%, primarily due to the decreases to the transfer to the Capital Projects Fund. We reduced the Keno funds transfer to the Capital Projects Fund by $326,347. We removed the transfer of property tax to the Capital Projects Fund, and we increased the transfer of council priority dollars to Capital Projects Fund by $24,736. Within this line item, there is a new placeholder of $75,264, which is a transfer of council priority funds to the debt service funds to help pay for debt incurred by the airport. Overall, the government subsidies and transfers fund decreased $859,249, or 56.78%. Moving down to capital outlay, this fund increased $48,000 or 60%, which is due in large part to the addition of machinery and equipment in line item 84. In line item 82, staff removed the Welcome to Norfolk sign line item for $30,000 and added $25,000 for the addition of 6 ADA accessible doors to the administration building. In line 84, staff added backup hardware for $40,000 and a new printer copier for $8,000. This copier is to replace the current printer that prints all of the water bills for the city. It currently has over 1 million prints to it and it's near its end of life. Staff also increased the paper folder item to $15,000 to include an inserter mechanism to alleviate staff having to manually stuff all city's water bills into envelopes. Overall, the admin expenditures total $5,075,876, which is a $657,550 or 11.47% decrease from the previous year. Are there any questions about the admin budget?
Riley, could you go into a little bit more, maybe I missed it, the other professional fees under administrative overhead? That's line 68.
68.
68, yeah.
So further into the document, it has more specific breakdown of what exactly makes up, what constitutes that 68. Other professional fees, you said?
Yeah.
Specific question.
Workforce partnership, what exactly is that?
Candace, do you want to speak to that?
60.
I think the question was about workforce partnership.
Yes, the workforce partnership. I'm sorry.
Candace is here, she can.
Good evening, Candace Alder with the Economic Development Office. So the Workforce Partnership is our Northeast Nebraska Growing Together initiative. The city's actually been contributing.
Need to get closer to the microphone, people can't hear you in the back.
Oh, you bet. So the city's actually been contributing $20,000 towards a workforce partnership since the 2015-2016 fiscal year budget. And so the program's really evolved over the years, and currently, as it sits, it's part of that Growing Together workforce initiative. This initiative was started back in 2018. It was a collaboration that brought together the Exarban Foundation in Omaha with some of our local leadership. At the time, Congressman Flood was actually serving on the Exarban board, and they were looking for ways to expand beyond Omaha and Lincoln and really take a look at how they can help come alongside rural communities to address workforce issues that we were facing. And so a group came together and we really strategized around what were the core issues that we were facing. And as we looked at the data, Exarban provided us a data scientist as a part of that. We saw just an increasing out-migration of our young adults. And to address that, we came up with strategies. The key strategies included downtown density and placemaking. Some of the results of that have been the riverfront, downtown revitalization, and the new student housing we've seen built in our downtown district. Entrepreneurial ecosystem building, that incubator, the intersect co-working space and incubator, and providing tools for entrepreneurship development. Arts and cultures, seeing the sculptures and the murals that have emerged has been a part of that. Cooperative scholarship programming with Wayne State College has been a huge part. That's what's bringing those seniors from Wayne State to live in our downtown district and work for our Norfolk area companies. Job retraining is another component of it, and that's our partnership with Northeast Community College. And we all are eagerly awaiting that iHub building to come up in our downtown district. That's a part of the workforce collaboration. And then early childhood education support. And we're working alongside the Norfolk Area Child Care Collaborative to actively address the child care shortage. So I did bring this nice piece that was produced. This was produced from an article that's actually can be found for anyone watching from home in the 2023-24 fall-winter issue of Norfolk Now magazine. You can find that at norfolknow.org. Just go to magazine. You can read all about the initiative, or I'm happy to answer further questions. Or Angie Stinger, she's our director, our executive director of the Growing Together Initiative. She would be more than happy to come in, and if you guys wanted to get an update or an overview of this program, she'd be more than happy to come and provide that for you. But it's been a great endeavor and has really, I think, they've come alongside us in so many ways. The student housing that you see with the Geary redevelopment and the Phillip Avenue apartments is a part of that collaborative. Their group proactively worked alongside the city to help raise $3.5 million to go towards the Riverfront Development Project. 1.5 of that in the form of foundational grants. And then the other was fundraising from private enterprises in Norfolk. So they've been a great partner, and I hope to see them continue to be supported by us.
So this is actually run as part of the city, or just as kind of a offshoot of the city?
So we provide the funds to the Exarban Foundation, and the Exarban Foundation collects funds from some of the other partners. So Wayne State College also contributes, Northeast Community College, I think Norfolk Public Schools contributes, Midwest Bank, Elkhorn Valley Bank. I know DACOS has been a big partner in it. And so you see the public sector and the private sector coming together to fund this, and then Exarban administers it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, Candace, I have a question.
You bet.
So in this, I see that last year, our partnership brought in retained 10 people in Norfolk. What is that? What's our, so starting in 2018 through the 10 in 2024, what's the total number that have stayed in Norfolk?
So this has really been a way, this has ramped up over the years, because to get the cooperative scholarship program into play, we actually had to start with freshmen in college. And then as they moved through their first 3 years, we really didn't have any kind of students that were coming into the community. What it did do, if we look at a different metric, is the Gearys decided to undertake the redevelopment project that we're seeing alongside the river. The first phase of that $25 million redevelopment project has been completed. That's that student housing that we see along the river now. And then also the $5 million apartment complex that Kelpie Herman and NeighborWorks built over on Phillip Avenue. And so the metrics are going to be changing. That first year, we only had, I think, 28 students come out of it because we were trying to scale it up. Now we're going to be going into years where we see 75 students every year coming into the downtown district. So I think we're going to see those change over the course of the years. You bet. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for the administration budget?
Jim? Randy, I do have a question, though. So it does say property tax to capital project fund, $624,000 was not initially not put in this budget? Was that some of the earlier questions I asked? Where we're not, was that a one-time fee, or is that, from last year's budget, and then it's not in this year's budget? Item 78.
Transfers of property tax to the capital projects fund, you're seeing in here, that 149, 736, that is, the city council, yeah, that zero, that 624, 102, that went to zero, that is what we were talking about.
Okay. That was a one-time transfer at the time, though, or was that?
Yes, we don't have any of those funds. We transfer money every year, and we used all of those excess transfers this year to lower that number to zero.
Okay. Any other questions, council? Did you have something there, Jim?
Jim McKenzie. I spent a lot of time on the budget, and I know we're talking about the admin budget, but this comes from looking at the total picture. And the total picture is the citizens are seeing a 25% increase in taxes, 24.88 to be exact. And so when I looked at that, I said, that's an impact. Whether that's partially for the police station or for other things, that's an impact. That's the actual impact to our citizens, is a 25% tax increase. So we have to be cognizant of that. That's huge. It's a huge increase to our citizens, ginormous. And so we've got to look at ways to reduce that. We can't do business as usual. And so that's why I looked at that. So budget, in terms of actually going across admin, but across all divisions. I looked at travel and
Jim, would it
training.
be beneficial to wait till the end, so when we go back into the
Well, I'll-
general fund budget? Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're trying to keep everybody kind of within there.
I understand. I'm going to talk specifically about admin here.
Okay.
But part of that is to explain where I came from. So travel and training, I did an analysis from actual expenditures on fiscal year 18-19 to what was budgeted for last year, because I didn't have all the budgets this year, because we don't have all those out yet. The actual expenditures in 18-19 compared to what was budgeted last year went up 250%. So in 6 years, it's up 250%, travel and training. In mid-administration, it was up 382% in 6 years. So that's a ginormous increase. So my recommendation is that you look, on each of these budgets, you look at finding ways to reduce travel and training. That's, everything's available online. I realize there's value in networking. Well, I don't want to lose that value, so I'm saying maybe you cut it in half. But either that or you're going to have to continue raising taxes. So I'm looking for opportunities. Travel and training is one of them. Between administration only, from the fiscal year 18-19, the actual expenditures were $22,088. What was budgeted last year, now I realize there's a decrease in budget this year, but I'm looking at last year so I could get a total, because I don't have all the budgets yet, because they're not out. But last year was budgeted $84,341. So in that 6-year period of time, the increase is 382% administration, okay? Overall, across all divisions in the general fund, I came up with a 250% increase in 6 years. So each division is different on how much it increased. Some are huge, some are not. So overall, it's up 250% in 6 years.
You're talking about travel and training, right?
Correct, travel and training. So I'm,
Additional employees were in that 6-year period.
not very many. I mean, you've added very few employees in that 6-year period. So, yeah, minimal. I mean, if you probably, I don't think you added 10%, I mean, you probably might add 5% employees, but you got a 250% increase in travel and training. And I'm throwing that 5% number off the cuff. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's not huge.
The numbers you're talking about, Jim, I think or that 250% you're referring to is 250% of 18-19 actuals or 24-25 budget, so that's 150% increase. You'd have to take 100% off of your numbers to get what the increase is.
Depends on how you would, yeah. Exactly. Depends on how you calculate that, but okay, yeah, I'll go with that. So it's still a 150% increase. I probably calculated it without taking the base value off of that. Still significant. So that's one area that I would suggest looking at. Dues and publications, again, there's significant dollars there, increases, I would take a look at that. There's, the mayor gets the Lincoln Journal Star and the Omaha World Herald for $825. I'm not sure the mayor's read that yet, but, I mean, so let's just look at areas where we can cut. We also get the Wall Street Journal. Annual report printing, something we never did before, but when Josh came, we started doing an annual report, $16,000 in the budget. In the era where everything's online, can we eliminate $16,000, put it online? We got $18,000 of office furnishing. I'm not sure what's that for. We talked about chairs. I mean, I can't imagine we have $18,000 worth of chairs, but can we reduce some of that? The Big Bang, the budget said bid bang book fest, so I assume that must be the Big Bang Boom, the 25,000. Can we afford that? Public transportation, I mean, obviously that's important. We have people that can no longer get to work because we're cutting public transportation. We're cutting that. We've got divisions that are fundraising for expenses. We left in here $25,000 for art, public art, and I realize there's some people here who are very passionate about that. But can we afford that? If we're cutting, if people can't get to work, we're cutting public transportation, but we can pay for sculptures. At some point in time, we have to make choices. And I hope we make the right choices. Those are the areas, you know, obviously wages, you know, when you look at the admin budget, realize the cost of living is 2.4%, but it shows a 4.94%, almost a 5% increase. I'm sure that's step and grade. I see there's maybe an extra half person in there. So it's, the citizens are again incurring a 25% tax increase. We've got to look for ways to be more efficient, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Mayor, council, city staff, appreciate your time. Really appreciate all your efforts to be good stewards of our community and our budget. I'm here as a volunteer. I serve on the Public Arts Council, and I just would advocate for continuing those efforts. Just to put it in a little perspective, if you take 25,000 of a budget of 138 million, which I believe last year was, that is 0.02 of a percentage point. To put it in another perspective, if a household has annual budget of 50,000, that would equate to $9 being spent on something to make their home nicer and more welcoming. So, and another way to look at it, a population of 25,000 people, 25,000 for public art is about $1 a person. So I hope that helps you put into perspective the dollars we're talking about. And every dollar is crucial here. I understand that it's a challenging year. The past few years, we have used part of the budget, we've recommended, I should say, we don't officially do anything, you do. We have recommended matching the tourism budget to support the sculpture walk. They were giving $500 per artist. We suggested matching that with another $500. So for example, last year, 18 artists in the sculpture walk, we matched $500 to each, or $9,000 of that budget went to that. We've done that the past 3 years. And I hope everyone would agree that that's been a tremendous welcoming project for our downtown community. If we don't use, or don't recommend that you use, the $25,000, whatever isn't recommended goes back into the general budget. So maybe this is a year we discuss, love to continue the sculpture walk. If there isn't anything else, would it be more helpful for that to go to the general budget? But I do really appreciate your consideration in keeping the public arts component for our community, if you would. Thank you.
Paula, could you state your name for the record,
Oh,
please?
sorry, Paula Pfluger.
Thank you.
So we need.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, I would also, since we have the budget up there, I would note that from Norfolk Area Transit, the request this year would be $125,000, not $140,000. They were contemplating that extra $15,000, but they are not at this time. So it'll stay the same.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council. Carol Andergaster. I am the newest member of your Public Arts Council. I do also serve Norfolk as the director of our River Point Creative District in downtown Norfolk. I'd be happy to meet with any of you and talk about the importance of the arts and how it's a placemaker, and how I see kids every day or every Saturday during farmers market run up to Rocky, which the Public Arts Council bought, and hug that dog and love their town because of that dog in their park. The arts do a lot of things. But I'm not going to talk about that tonight. What I'm going to talk about tonight is the economic impact. And that is, when I write a grant, I'm not saying a matching grant. I'm not saying I leverage these funds. I don't ever do that. But I always find in the narrative a place to say that my public government supports the arts in my community, and that's why you, foundation in Omaha, or you, private citizen who lives someplace other than Norfolk but has their heart in Norfolk, that's why you should also donate, is because our government and our taxpayer people have donated, right? Because our citizens have donated. That's why I can go out and ask other people to donate. It's a lot harder for me to do that if we aren't doing it first. And I will tell you, our local citizens are doing that, because I'm not doing that right now. And it is private, it is public, but government plays a part. And I would ask for $1 a citizen that you keep it in the budget. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies.
Any other discussion? All right, so I would entertain a motion. What? Okay. Entertain a motion and a second to postpone recommendation of the admin budget to July 22nd, 2025 for the budget review work session.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Roll call, please.
Arntz,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Langy,
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
All right, we're on to item number 7. Group insurance budget.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So before you is the proposed group insurance budget for fiscal year 2026. I'll cover for you the highlights, and just feel free to stop and ask questions along the way. Hopefully you found the page in your book. So starting on page 37, enclosure 7 of the fund revenue detail, The beginning fund balance is up 31% from last year, which is primarily due to a lower medical claim year. We have in the past had some high claim years where this has drawn that down. So when we do have low claim years, fortunately, the previous year and this current year, it helps offset those costs and build back a healthy fund balance. Moving down to other interest income, which is around 41% for this next year. And that's also because of the healthy balance we currently have. And I believe the interest rate of 3% is used for that projection, which has been provided to us by the finance department. This also helps generate the revenue needed to support this budget. The total funds available, as you can see, is 12.73%. Again, it's due to the amount of claims that we have is relatively low. We don't have very many going into reinsurance, which is a positive sign. We'll skip over the next few pages and go into the divisional expenditure. So to provide you a better understanding of what's paid through the group insurance fund, the personnel costs have increased by 12.95% due to the increases in reinsurance and estimated costs of health claims for next fiscal year. So the monthly expenditures moved from $335,000 to $375,000, and the dental remains the same. We kept that at $12,000 per month. We also have a reduction in costs from the previous year to show that the internal administrative fees have gone down simply because we are moving the Flex and Cobra administration to our consultants, IBC, also to help with just the legalities of that. We don't want our internal staff trying to manage through that, and it is very time-consuming to process that. So by moving that, we've decreased those costs. Just some other notes, I guess, or additional changes for next year is that we've worked with our consultants to enhance our plan. Right now, we just have a family or single coverage option. And so we're looking at adding 2 additional plans, which is employee plus spouse or employee plus children. It's very common across other cities to offer those, and this will allow employees to get a reduction in the premium cost. If they don't truly need a family plan, they just have themselves and their spouse, why are they paying for a family plan? They should have a reduction in cost. And so that will allow them some additional take-home pay. So you'll see 6% decrease in reduced price to the premium for employee plus spouse, and an 8% reduced cost to the employees from the family plan cost for employee plus children. And then the family plan cost premium is not changing. Historically, that typically goes up a few percentages, but because our fund is doing well, we don't have to do that, which saves the employees some money. So I will entertain any questions if there are any for group insurance.
Do we, for bargaining reasons, do we do anything with any other cities to bring costs down? Like,
Trying to do some sort of consortium with insurance?
yes,
I don't believe we've looked into doing that. I think that there are some additional pieces to that or costs associated if we did decide to move towards that. Like, I know, for example, community colleges have that type of
Right.
plan, but there's also a lot of additional costs that go with that to manage that. When we can do our own, we're self-funded, we can save a lot of money that way as well.
okay.
And so we found that very beneficial. I don't think that would be wise for us to move that direction right now, and our consultants that we pay are advising us the same. But that's a good question.
Thank
Can I
you.
throw something in on that?
Sure.
A couple of years ago, the League of Nebraska Municipalities started up a program called LIGHT. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's in essence what you're talking about there. And we did look at that in depth, and what Jessica said, I 100% agree with. That's not really targeted for a community our size. It's more for the small villages that don't have the staff in which to work with this sort of magnitude of employees and assets. So hopefully that helps answer some of your questions as well.
What company administers our plan?
So we administer our own.
Well, you have a
plan.
managing partner. You have
Yeah,
United Healthcare or Blue
yeah,
Cross.
Blue
or-
Cross Blue Shield, and Emeritus does our dental. So Blue Cross is for our health, Emeritus is for our dental.
And how often do we look into changing that managing company?
Yeah, so we just reviewed, it would have been 2 years ago. We moved from United Healthcare to Blue Cross. So we're seeing a benefit by doing that. I think it's good to do kind of a review of that every 3 to 5 years, probably, 3.
Yeah, three is the ideal place to do it.
Yeah.
That's just years of
And,
experience. So
honestly, having Emeritus and Blue Cross, sometimes it's easier to have everything through one company rather than two. So, I mean, we're looking at those types of things with our consultant.
just a curiosity question.
Yeah.
Just a curiosity
Yep,
question. So.
it's a great question. Any other?
Yeah, one thing earlier, you said there was a 6% decrease in overall cost per single employee, or I didn't catch all that. Then you said the 8% was with, then you said there was an increase for family.
The premiums that
Yes.
employees pay to have the family plan, if they elect to move to employee plus children or employee plus spouse, they'll receive either a 6% discount from that family premium cost or an 8% discount, depending on which plan. So it'll save them, I think it's like $30 is what it amounts to, or something. Let's see. So the family would be $527 per month to cost someone, or if they move to employee plus children, it'll be $485 a month, so that'll be a cheaper cost to them. And then employee plus spouse would be $495, so it's $10 more. So there may be some employees who their spouse decides to go on their own employer's insurance, and then they decide to go employee plus children. Like, you can get pretty creative if that saves money to the employee, so.
So do we see that same savings on the city side then too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess
So-
I'm really surprised to hear that we haven't had those options before, because from where I came from, that was pretty standard. We had a lot of single parents and
Right.
not complete families, so
And
yeah.
it's not, family's not for everyone, but that's what they're forced to take. So I think having more options is better for the employees.
Was that something that United only had the two, or is that just something Blue Cross is now offering?
I think it was just a decision by the city to have those two options. I wasn't working here, so I can't speak to that, but I just think it's good to have more options, and you can expand it further from low deductible and high deductible options, but this is phase 1.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
think it's
start
great.
there.
I just think that's great,
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Any other conversation? Any other questions? All right, then I would need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the group insurance budget to the July 22nd, 25 budget review work session.
So move, Your Honor. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Langy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, we're on to item number 8. We're going to be going over the engineering budget. Steve, looks like.
Yep. Mayor, council, thanks. I think this budget's really pretty straightforward. I'll hit a couple highlights on here just for some clarification. A year ago, in conversation, we moved over some of the personnel costs. We moved over all the personnel costs for the individual that was in the storm sewer position or funded through storm sewer. We moved those over to engineering, thinking that would be a better way to manage that, because that that individual is about 60% storm sewer and 40% engineering. So we just moved him 100% over. This year, we're moving them back. So you see a 19.34% deduction in personnel costs. There's still a deduction, but $91,932 of that $197,000 decrease that you see there, $91,932 of that is the stormwater position. If we consider that, if we put that stormwater position back in there, it's still a 10.34% decrease in personnel costs, if you just want to look at it that way. So I wanted to point that out. Why a decrease still? Because now we are fully staffed in the engineering division. We have hired engineer 1 last January, and we've just today, 7/1, just today, new engineering tech 2 started. So with that, we are adjusting some of our other labor that we've been carrying in there and reducing that since we're now fully staffed. We've had some part-time staff and seasonal staff that we've been carrying in there to help us get through the time here where we haven't been fully staffed. So with that, the other increases generally that you see throughout here, the uniforms at 25%, vehicle machinery and maintenance, all of that reflects the fact that there's another full-time staff person in engineering. So the part-time staff, we weren't supplying any sort of a uniform for. What we do supply in terms of that uniform, generally during the winter, we're out on inspections. We have a fairly heavy reflective coat that a lot of staff will purchase, or will purchase that for the staff. That's generally what that uniform budget is for. The vehicle machinery and maintenance, that 38%, we went from 4 vehicles to five vehicles. It's an older, we tend to use some of the older police vehicles that are pushed down. They require a little maintenance every now and then, so having that 5th vehicle in there, we increased the maintenance by $700. Not a huge number, but a fairly substantial percentage increase. Office equipment and maintenance, 48 account. I'm not aware of anything there that was specific general increases. Again, under the legislative affairs, we've added for the full-time staff that with the engineer, that person of that 3,159, approximately $2,500 of that total increase is related to that engineer 1 position. If we go all the way back to the bottom end, the 16.95% deduction in total expenditures, again, adjusting for that shift of the staff over to stormwater, the actual deduction in the engineering budget this year is 9.46%. Originally, we had the replacement of one of our vehicles with a half-ton four-wheel drive extra cab. We had purchased one of those 6 years ago. That one's still working fine, but we wanted to add another one to the fleet. It's very beneficial when we're out on grading projects during the 4 seasons of the year, where some of the other vehicles just don't allow us the access that those vehicles do. But with the budget constraints to where they were, we went ahead and cut that vehicle out of our budget. So, any questions? Again, it's really the fact that we're fully staffed and able to do some budget reductions in engineering.
Steve, your other professional fees, why is there such a drastic fluctuation in that?
Sometimes we've known that there's going to be some conversation of needing some professional fees, and we don't necessarily know where to plug them in. Now, As we've added the storm sewer fee, that's given us a place to add some engineering costs for stormwater. So over the years, we've been able to reduce that engineering a little bit. What is in here, and I did want to bring that up, at the next council subcommittee, I'm going to be bringing in a conversation on a parking study with VPD and cost sharing that parking study for downtown. And so there is in the estimated expenditures for this year, $10,000 for that parking study, as well in the budgeted expenses for other professional services. There's another there's $20,000 in the estimated expenditures for this year, another $20,000 in the budgeted expenses this year. That $40,000 would be our 50% cost share with VPD on that downtown parking study. So that, we could, if you want to have some conversation around there. But that's, again, in general, you see fluctuation, it's dry powder. We don't always know what's going to walk in the door, but historically, we know that we need to anticipate a little bit of powder in there for engineering services or some sort of a professional service, could be a legal service. And so we've always carried a little bit of cash kind of in that budget for unknown.
Steve, I do have a question. Just back on page 51, shows your personnel roster, and it shows the project engineer proposed, is that title is being eliminated? Is that correct? Going from .63.
Correct.
to
That is
0.
that is currently a part-time employee that's been working with us, retired individual.
Are they gone to an engineer one, or is that where that number went to?
Correct. So now that we've hired an engineer one, and then we've hired the engineer tech two.
So we will not have a project engineer?
We will not have the part-time project engineer.
Okay. So then I was going back to page 46, very bottom. You got project engineer, but then we have a budget there for a project engineer on the top of page 47. The very bottom of 46 shows project engineer. I just didn't know if maybe that was missed.
Give me 1
It's
second here.
travel and training.
Yeah, page 46, it's just a carryover from the cut off on the page, I believe.
Yeah, I'm putting names.
Randy, can you say what's in the VPD balance right now for vehicle parking district? Can we answer this question first?
I don't know, maybe it was just an error.
So you're pointing out the project engineer right here.
Project engineer on the very bottom of page 46, and then if you slide to page 47, you'll see estimated cost associated with the project engineer.
You're correct, Rich. You're correct, Frank. Those training costs for the project engineer can be eliminated.
Okay.
Good question.
Now you can ask your question.
This, like I mentioned,
Easy.
one of those
Easy to miss.
individuals just walked in the door today.
Yeah.
That offer was made kind of as we were finalizing this, so.
That's why we're looking at it, right?
Yep.
Steve, number 84, what is asset management? It's $9,500.
Asset management, so historically, across the Public Works divisions, and you heard Val talk a little bit, well, maybe you didn't hear her today, but across the Public Works divisions, we've had asset management systems out at the water plant, the wastewater plant, We've had a old system in our street department. We did not really have anything in fleet, and we didn't have anything in engineering. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, we started looking at, we did a comprehensive call for proposals from asset management companies. And now we've selected one called Novatics, Elements by Novatics, and we're implementing that across all the divisions. And what that allows us to do is, with one system, we can look and see asset costs, asset maintenance costs. We can see, when pumps need to be replaced, when belts need to be replaced, how much time streets is spending doing pothole repair, all that stuff. It's about maintaining our assets and tracking the maintenance costs on our assets. And so we've been going from multiple systems to one system.
Well, it just says final 50% configuration. I guess that's what.
Yeah, so engineering, we just started working, I think in April on the engineering side. We're anticipating getting about 50% through this year, and the other 50% through in this next budget year.
You'll see this in a multitude of times throughout the budget, multi-divisional deal.
The building and codes division, they've been budgeting for that as well over the last couple of years. They're about 50% through their implementation. It's a product by the same company. It's a little bit different because it's around buildings and codes and building permits and capturing the fees associated with that. But it's kind of all part of the same system.
Steve, have you looked at the VPD budget to see what they have in there and
So they are as well budgeting that 50% share. When we see their budget, they've got 20,000 in this year's budget and anticipated expense towards that, and 20,000 budgeted in next year's budget for that.
Okay. Do you think that they
So
can?
The plan itself, we identified a company that works, this is kind of a niche market for them. We've had some good conversation with them. I'd say an extensive conversation with them, looked at their product in other communities. It's actually about a $125,000 contract, but we as the city, we're going to do all the data collection in the downtown area. We'll analyze the data and then provide that back to the company. So that's going to saves about $45,000 off the contract. So it gets it from 125 to about an $80,000 contract.
I just know they increased their budget last year by like 25% through the increased valuation of downtown. So I just wondered if they, in talking with Randy, I think they got a pretty good amount of money in their account, but I don't know what's budgeted. But I just wonder if we couldn't look at them just paying for that. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's tight. When the time comes to look at that, I think we'll be looking at that before we finalize the budgets. And we can have a conversation at that time. Yeah.
VPD will be at the next budget, July 10th discussion.
Any other questions? So, just looking back at the labor report, we're going from 6.63 budgeted employees to 5.6 budgeted employees, so dropping one position.
Okay. Any other questions for Steve? All right, seeing none. I need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation for the engineering budget to the July 22nd, 2025 budget review work session.
Second.
Motion a second, roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Langy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
All council members present voting affirmative, motion carries.
Brings us on to the street budget. Will be discussing that with us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll kind of go over the overview of this, and then we can go into whatever questions you have. So the personnel cost increase for streets budget is $104,314, or 4.60, which includes the comparability adjustment and the pension contributions. Then if we go down into the operating part of it, I guess, there's significant changes with the other categories. The operating supplies and materials increased 25,115 or 4.18 due to the increase in uniforms, road maintenance materials and supplies, and minor apparatus tools, which partially is off a decrease by the cost of fuel. It was a little higher last year. Other operating costs, there's a decrease of 12,380 in rental. That's the vac truck we usually had rented for 2 months. We dropped that to 1 month. We got through the whole storm sewer system last year. We were looking at trying to get through it in 5 years. We got through it in 4. So we dropped it to a month. Between using the one that water has that we own a partial share of that and having one for another month, we think we can keep on track to get back through that every 5 years we're getting through the whole storm sewer system in the city. So that's why that has dropped off, which is 11.8 decrease in rent. Garbage fees went up a little, we just been off. I think with streets and fleet back when they split it 3 years ago, we were still, I think we're paying some of the cost of fleet there. It's hard to separate out, so we just increased that to what our cost is a year. Utilities maintenance, there's a decrease in that of 2,291 or 0.39% due to the decrease in electricity, natural gas, sewer, streetlights, electricity. So that's that whole package there with NPPD, the lease, the whole thing. We've been gradually bringing down each year. This year we left it, we're about 12% over what it's been costing us, just not knowing, all of a sudden we see something jump. It seems like it's gradually just kind of stayed where it's at now. So we just been minusing off a little each year. So, but we got it's about 10% over what it's been running us, but just not knowing what may happen there for increases. What else we got here? Legislative affairs, there's an increase there of 3,148. It looks like a big number. We do have some in there we can maybe look at. A lot of that are in there is if we hire somebody new this year, there's guys mentioned every year they might retire, but there's possible that we could lose 2 to 3 guys this year, just they're at the retirement age. So we put those in there. We can take a better look at that if you'd like. The big one probably for us, the streets hadn't done a lot of training, but just with technology, the way it's changed in between snow plows, whatever it is we're operating, it's just important the guys get out there to get through those classes to run a bunch of that stuff. There's just a lot of stuff involved going on there. Other administration overhead increases, 7,475. Most of that is for adding 2 computers because of the asset management software that we have implemented. We're up and running at 100% in streets now with that, telling our true cost. We won't have a true reading this year because we didn't get it up and going probably till about, April probably? That we went 100%. So but it's still giving us some good costs on what things are actually costing us compared to how we could ever do it before. And so that's the top overview. The capital outlay, we're down there. We pushed out a couple of things just where the budgets are and think we can possibly get through another year. We did leave in money for a couple RFBs for the pedestrian crossings or a speed limit sign if we'd like to get another one of them in town. Both of them run around $8,500. That's just for the cost of the crossing. That doesn't include the labor or maybe the underground electricity and stuff like that we got to run to it, but at least if we wanted to go that route. We've been adding 1 to 2 of those a year in different places through, most of them have been complaint driven, but we're trying to get some others out there as well before it gets to that. So we left that in there. With that, I can, if there's something you want to break down farther, I can, but so overall, we're looking at a $91,098 increase, which is a 2.45%. Have any questions?
Well, you're talking about classes for training. Where are those classes held?
All but the snow conference one, that switches to a different state every year. It was in Omaha 2 years ago. Last year it was in Michigan. This next year I think it's in Cleveland, I believe. So they rotate around throughout the Midwest to give somebody a different chance at going to it. Mm-hmm. That's our most expensive one, and it's just on everything we use. Anything from pothole patchers to snow plows to they bring you got breakout sessions you go to every day, and then there's also a exhibit floor that's full of all the newest equipment and stuff.
So then at
that
the end of it, you get certified, or you, after you pass that class, you're.
Yep, so all the, and every once in a while I'll take it again too, just for the new stuff that's out there, but there's a supervisor's training, they call it supervisor training, it's for everybody. And then when you're done with that class, you're certified. So that's that one day is a full day of just that. They go through everything from how you're applying salt, why you're applying it the way we do, which we stress to them, but it goes a lot farther when you hear it from somebody that's been doing it for, 30 years up there telling you. And so it's been very beneficial. So we normally trying to work through the crew taking 2 guys a year, and usually start with the newest ones just because a lot of them don't have experience that they're learning that way. In Omaha, when I was down there, we did pay for a 1-day for them to all go down there to get through the exhibit floor, just to see the amount of equipment that's out there for that. But farther away, of course, we gotta change that then. The other ones are more local. Like I said, some of them we can look at, depends on if we have new guys starting, they're not near as expensive either, so. Any other questions?
Will, what did you spend last year on training?
I don't know where we're at. We're down from what we had budgeted, and I think our training's pretty much done. We did add an elements training in there for Megan. She's kind of implementing this whole thing for all the divisions and setting that stuff up. So hers is out of state every year, but it's something she needs to go to just to keep up with what we got. But I think, and we're pretty much done with training for this year.
It's gonna go back to.
It's 53.
What else you got for questions while I'm digging this up?
I have a question. It might be more geared towards Randy or Sheila possibly. Again, I'm looking at on page 52, item 14. 2023, we had an expense of $66,000, and 2 years later, we're almost double on that pension. How does that?
We've added a couple positions for sure when annexation happened, so I know that's part of it. Other than that, I couldn't tell you. We've added 2 or 3 positions though since I've been here. The electrician position, and we added another operator, and we were looking at hiring one more, but we haven't. So I know we've hired 2 additional for sure. I don't know what percentage that is.
You have 23 on your payroll now?
I don't have that sheet with me.
I think so.
That sounds right though. With
23,
that.
adding 2 shouldn't, you wouldn't think.
Well, that's probably 23 with all of them now. I think you get a couple part-times in there. I think right now there's 24, so yeah, around that 22, 23 full-time.
I would just ask that maybe that kind of be looked into, make sure those numbers are actually right.
Okay.
At the conclusion of 2020, September of last year, looks like about.
We were over last year.
Yeah, over last year's about $16,000 roughly for dues and publications, travel and training.
This year we've spent 11,512, and I think our training's probably done for this year.
And that's probably due from the, let's see here, end of April, or end of May, excuse me.
Yeah, that had all of our conferences on there.
11,512. Will, you have, on 2021, we did roughly $2,300 in contract snow removal, and then it jumped up to 69, then dropped back to 5, and then we've earmarked 46,000 each year for contract snow removal. What?
Last year was the first year, because we were so high that year before, it cost us 69.
Yeah.
Before that, they were 35,000. Last year, we hauled the snow ourselves because of budget. When you were complaining a couple times why the snow wasn't hauled, that was our fault.
I was complaining where it was stacked at.
That was the year before. But anyway, I can remember very well. But we hauled it all ourselves this year, so there's no expense this year, and it's just year to year, you don't know what it's gonna
Just
cost you.
fluctuates.
So,
Well, just like average overtime is $44, and so that'd be, over 1,000 hours to justify that in overtime before you could still save money paying 1,000 hours in overtime to the current employees.
Depends on when the snowstorm comes. The guys gotta sleep too, so. It's, believe me, it's looked at many ways, so.
Well, in the 2024-25 estimated expenditures for the machinery and equipment is 14,000, and the budget was 51,000. That would be
What number?
84.
What page?
Page 53?
Page 53. Okay, page 53, line 84. Is that
Yeah.
what you said?
So is there anything in particular that you cut out or didn't spend, or is that just,
For this next, so
yeah? For this year?
this year, yeah, we had a riding lawnmower, replaceable riding lawnmower, replacing a riding lawnmower, and we had a laser for the ditching we do. And I thought there was one other one.
On page 62, 62 for 84, you can see what was last year and what was this year.
Is there anything that stands out that you cut, that you didn't spend? Because the budget was 51,000.
Yep, so those are cut out this year, they're not in there.
They were cut out, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, the only thing that's in there is we added one RRFB.
Okay, right.
So that went from 8,500 to the 17,000.
Using that as a quick case study in 2024, 25, for folks that are viewing it from the audience and at home, the GL laser for ditching was $6,500, was last year. This year, it was zero. That's,
Well, since 2021, in the actuals, it's come down quite a bit. Is that just?
Just catching up as we had it in there, yep. So this year we were looking at, before we submitted budgets, what we were looking at, we needed to start updating one of our pull-behind mowers that we mow where the mowing contract's not. We pushed that off a year, hoping we can get through another year. Just trying to be proactive on the stuff we are replacing.
Yeah.
And then just on some year on the haul and snow, we don't have the big enough equipment to haul 12-inch snows all the time. We just have two big trucks and them little ones. So it all depends on the size of the storm. That's why we were able to haul it this year. Our snowstorms were small and.
So we didn't spend the 46,000 this year?
No. No, we hauled it all ourselves this year. But we just don't have that kind of equipment to haul that. So then we have a contract with different contractors to help us out.
Last year, you contracted out some mowing. Is that still under your department?
Yep.
Is that in here?
That's out of the shaft.
That's out of chaff? Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Will? Anybody? Right. See none. Need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the street budget to the July 22nd, 2025 budget review and session meeting.
I'll make a motion to postpone the street budget to the July 22nd meeting.
Second.
Motion, second, roll call, please.
Arns.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
McCarthy.
Yes.
Beckman.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Langy.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Moving on to item 10, the fleet budget. I've got Will written down again, so.
All right, kind of go over like the last one. This is the fleet budget. So start the personnel costs, increase there is 14,734 or 2.83. That's for the cost of living and the pension contributions. The significant changes in the other operating costs or materials for the fleet. Operating supplies and materials, $592 or 2.5% due to the increase in uniforms and fuel cost, mainly what they use there. Some of that rotates around throughout the year, so it's hard to put a number on it because they get the fuel in by semi-loads and then that gets distributed back out. So sometimes there's some gray area there who covers what at the end of the year, but that's a little bit of that. Utilities and maintenance, there's a decrease of $8,004 or 7.68 due to a decrease in natural gas and building grounds and plant maintenance. Some of these we're still adjusting from when fleet switched from streets to their own. So some of these numbers were in there higher and just each year as we see what they use, we're getting those numbers zeroed in a little bit. So that's where that savings is there, going off a 3-year average. The legislative affairs increase is $645 or 5.19% due to increase in travel, training, and dues. Some of them are certifications that the mechanics need to keep up with what they're doing and trying to get them more where they haven't had in the past, or they got a couple new employees, so we're trying to get them certified in different things. So that's where that is. Most of those are in state. They do go to they have been going to snow conference because there's a mechanic supervisors class there that they go through for a full day, and then breakout sessions around that where they get certified when they're done, which is big on working on the plows and hydraulic systems of what we got on those. Other administration overhead is is the 1,339 or 8.35%, and that's due to the increase in insurance. Overall, theirs is a decrease of $36,487, which is 5.05%. Some of that's to the 84 account. They've been getting 2 garage doors replaced a year just for preventive maintenance on those. They were having some trouble. We went down to 1 door this year. I think there's only 1 after this year of getting those updated because they kept breaking. So we took that out of the budget. They had some software that we pushed off just because where we were in budgets this year that were wanting to update for some diagnostics. A snow pusher, which now those have all been replaced or upgraded for the loaders for pushing snow downtown. So we don't have another one of those. But overall, I think the only other thing was we had purchased a man lift, and we were needing to get a trailer for that, so we pushed that off. We have to switch a bunch of things around to haul it, but if we have to do that for another year or something, we can do that. It just takes a lot of time to do it, so. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions.
As Will mentioned, years ago, some of you probably remember, folks that are new to tuning in, the fleet division was a component of the street division that was split out, so that's why we're still honing some of the numbers, getting it zeroed in. Questions?
Will, what's the ground improvements and building updates? About 45,000.
Just, that building was built, I believe in I don't know, maybe it was the 90s. I'm thinking where I was at before. Anyway, they haven't done really any preventive maintenance. They got some bad air conditioning going on in the parts room and stuff, and nothing's ever been updated. So that's just, same thing with the garage doors. We're just gradually going through and trying to update stuff so we don't have to do it last minute type stuff.
So, as long as I can remember, that building was there, and that's from 99, so.
I thought it was the early 90s it was built, but I'm not 100% sure.
I just wonder what it was.
Yeah. That's what it is, trying to update the offices and bathroom, just stuff that hasn't been done since it's been built, so gradually pecking away at it. Anything else?
Well, on your personnel roster, you have equipment mechanic 1 for this, last year was 1, now it's going down to 0, and you're moving evidently that position to a mechanic 2?
Yep, so that was last year before he went full-time, that was a student that was out at Northeast Community College, and he worked part-time for us. So until he got out of college and he accepted the full-time position, he worked as a mechanic 1, which is a little less pay. When he graduated and come on full-time, then we moved him to a mechanic 1, because he was certified then for that. So that's what that is.
That was a great opportunity that was seized by Will to go out there and make contact with a young man in that circumstance that's going through the program, incorporated into the division that then naturally became an employee.
Yeah, Nancy helped with that, to coordinate all that. But that's what that is.
Other questions?
Any additional questions for Will? Right, seeing none, I need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the fleet budget to the July 22nd, 2025 budget review and work session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McCarthy? Or, excuse me, Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Langy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
All council members present voting affirmative, motion carries.
That moves us to item 11, Parks and Recreation budget.
Mayor and Council, Nathan Powell, Parks and Rec Director. Go ahead and get started.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Are you ready, Mayor?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Well, we lost a couple. Do you want to wait?
Yep.
We can, let's just take a little break here.
Break us? Yep.
If people gotta get up for a minute, go ahead. We'll wait until whoever gets back.
No, I'm good, thank you. That was awesome.
I'm good, thank you, Kylie.
Good, thank you.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, questions gotten a lot shorter. We were going now, be done by 8 o'clock versus.
You ain't gonna make it.
Usually you know some questions.
You're wishful thinking.
I might leave at 8. I got kids to take care of.
Oh, you're leaving.
I got supper to make up for kids, so. Life of a single dad, you know?
Jimmy Jones.
Well, good news is they're all, if they're hungry, they can make themselves something. I always keep.
All right, we'll jump back into it. Nate, go ahead and get going.
All right. I'll start off with our salaries and wages. One of the problems that we've had these last few years is the minimum wage increases that are significantly impacting our salaries. For perspective, in 21, 22, our starting wages were at $9, and next year we're going to be at 15. So we're almost doubling, and we're talking about 50,000 plus hours at the water park and some of the rec that we have going on. So that's a significant increase for us. The other item that I have on here is a position for the senior center as a supervisor, but that will be pending an agreement with council and the senior center. So we'll be bringing that forward as soon as possible, but if that agreement doesn't happen, then this position wouldn't happen either. So that will be another conversation on another day, if that's okay. And then I'll go through different line items here. I'll focus on the items that are increasing. '21, just uniform costs have gone up. You can see it in our history with 150 kids and the full-time staff as well. We've done a little bit of increase there from 400 to 500 for the full-time staff. I'm sorry, from 400 to 500, that's correct. And then also just the cost of uniforms has been increasing. 29, the increases there due to chemicals. Pool chemicals are up. Our fertilizers, weed control, mosquito spraying, that's all included in that as well. And those are all items that have been increasing. Garbage fees, 32, have also been moving up a little bit, so we want to try to stay within what our actuals are being. 46, HVAC repairs, irrigation, scoreboard repairs have been increasing. They're aging. One repair is probably $5,000. So they're expensive to keep those costs going. So we are going to be looking at doing some replacements in the very near future, but they're all aging out, and those are expensive to actually maintain. 47, vehicle repair costs, again, our aging fleet. The costs just continue to rise as the fleet ages. 48, just some archiving costs. Our home base, our clock in and clock out system for all of our staff, that caused some increase as well there. 55, a little bit more staff training for mosquito vector training. Instead of having just one employee trained on mosquitoes, we're trying to get a few. So that is something that has to be done in the evenings, and want to make sure we have staff available. And then 64, just some computer costs that we have, and some miscellaneous office supplies that we want to keep up with as well. Concessions as well, those prices go up as well, but those are revenue. That's a revenue generator with revenues around 160,000. So we are profitable there. I'll go ahead and go to the capital items. The capital requests seem higher this year because originally we had most of our items in the CIP, but since we've changed that to anything below 100,000, it all made its way on here because that's mainly what we do. We don't really have large projects there. We are replacing equipment and smaller projects as well. So I can run through those for you. We are asking for a pickup as we do each year. We have about 30 trucks, and we try to replace one a year. We have 2 tool cats. Both of them are aged out and getting old. One of them is leaking exhaust into the cab and actually caught fire this year. So we want to get that one replaced as soon as possible. It is a safety hazard. Want to get a snow brush for that as well. We do need to replace some more. We have 14 mowers in our fleet, and we want to keep those. They'll last anywhere from 7 to 10 years, depending on where it's being used. So we want to make sure we're replacing one of those each year as well. Ice bumper cars, we would like to do that at the ice rink. That is a donation that we are seeking out. We don't have that secured yet, but we're pretty confident, but it's not 100% yet, but we wanted to get that on here. So if no donation, no bumper cars. That's what that means. We would like a video screen. We've been doing movies under the stars, but the quality and of the sound and also the screen, we need something more commercial for that. And these are all Keno items. Field 1, outfield temporary fence. We did replace one in Field 2 out at the Kohler Complex. We would like to replace another one. As of request, we've been using these temporary fences that fall over and don't work very well. So we want a proper fence out there. Tahoe fountains, we've been having trouble with them, mainly because of the electrical lines are getting snagged by fishing hooks and different things. So we want to try to do something a little bit better to keep those things going. It's been an issue. Enclosed trailer, we did get a need for that this year with the Zamboni and our winter activities. We do need something enclosed to transport that equipment. We also had a commercial skate sharpener. We do have one, but it's not commercial grade, and we're getting a lot of requests from the public to actually do some skating, so there would be some revenue there that we could have. Down to infrastructure. Memorial bleachers, a lot of the bleachers have some wood underneath the seat and it's folding, and so we need to get that all replaced with more aluminum benches instead of the wood with the covers. The 4th Street Park tennis courts, those are 8 feet and they should be 10 feet. Right, especially right there, right next to the street, and that fence is getting old, and the gates aren't working properly, and it just needs some work, and it's a real eyesore there. Central Park, we've been working on Central Park projects. The only thing we really have left is to do the walkway inside the park and the basketball court slab as well. So we have 80,000 there for that. Skyview trail lighting, this is a donation that we believe we're going to get, so we want to use that 60,000 to start that project. It won't finish it, but it'll help us get some infrastructure there and get going on getting a trail lighting around the lake. Dog park irrigation, we've been working on some irrigation projects, and we think these are important. What's happening at the dog park is because our grass is so good on our fields, they've been using our fields, and we do not want dogs on our fields. It's not good for the grass, and we have put up signs that say no dogs, but when you have dirt in the dog park, it's really hard to attract people to use that. So we're trying to get some irrigation in there. The Johnson Park swings is something that came up. It's part of the design, but we just didn't have enough funds to make that happen. So we do have that in here as a request. The Nord Park irrigation, well, that's also been a request. We are trying to actually get that done this year. I will know by the 22nd if we can actually swing that. So I'll let you know on that. On Taha, the cabin flooring there is really bad. The countertops are getting bad as well. It needs to be replaced. First Street put in, we want to do some improvements there as we look to possibly move the location of that put in. Because of the new housing development that's going in there, we're going to run out of room real quick. And then soccer and baseball field conditioning. This is also Keno. The ball fields that we have at Tahazuka have lips, and we haven't been filling in the infield material we haven't done it enough, so that's created a lip issue where the balls bounce up into the face when they're playing, and so we need some funds there to actually get that fixed, and those are our requests, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So for all your infrastructure and your capital outlay that is related to Keno funds, are we doing like, since you came, it sounds like you're not in the CIP anymore because you're lower, are these just placeholders until you have enough funding or is that the approximate total amount of funds you need for each one of those projects?
That's, some of these, like the trail lighting we need to do some design work and infrastructure to figure out what we need. So that'll come probably in the next year's cycle. We won't be asking for any more of anything else in these this year. This is what we need. Yep.
I just didn't know there was that much Keno funds available. If you cut out the donation of 60,000. Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yep. No, we look at the Keno dollars each year to see what's available, and we try to squeeze in what we can, and we try to do projects throughout the community as well, and not just focus in one area.
Any questions for Nate? Anybody else have any questions for Nate out in the audience? Right, see none, I need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the Parks budget to the July 2025 budget review work session meeting.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, roll call, please.
Arns.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
McCarthy.
Yes.
Beckman.
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Lengy.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, that moves us to the planning budget, and that'll be Val presenting that. Item 12.
Good evening, Val Grimes, Director of Planning and Development. You're making up some good time tonight, aren't you? So I'll start with personnel costs. So it does contain the COLA, any compensation study, and the 2% pension. But you'll see a large decrease in the group insurance because that is from last year to this year, we did cut that one person. So we had 7 in the budget and now we have 6. So that's why you see a full insurance come out of there. So with that, the total percent increase is 1.24% for personnel. Uniforms, it looks like a big number, 25%. It's $400 because we keep the same amount of uniforms for public works for our guys, and the variable went from 400 to 500 per person. Number 48, office equipment and maintenance. So that went up a bit because as you were hearing in other people's, the 48 account has that asset management, like annual fee. And so this went up due to last year we were just looking at the annual fee for permits. And part of the contract at the time was not including the ability to have people pay for their permits through the system. And as we've implemented that in May, that is the second thing people ask for. It's working well, great, now I can pay for my permit online. We're working on that. And so what we did, that is a little bit more for an annual fee to have that module put on there. But what we did to compensate for it was in this year's budget, we had the 75,000, that's the second half of the portion of it. And the cost of the implementation of the credit card acceptance was going to be about another $7,000 to $8,000. So instead of asking for that in addition, we actually cut a couple of the permits out of that $75,000, like the chicken and a couple things that we only have 2 or 3 each year that come through. And so we cut those so that we could add in the implementation of the credit card acceptance, if that makes sense. So we're trying to keep everything within budget and not ask for anything more. But with this, we did add a Bluebeam. That's a system that allows you to get the plans in and you can measure off of them and you can mark them up so that hopefully, I know Councilman Granquist asked a few years ago why we were still getting paper copies of plans. So hopefully with this, it will make it more convenient for everybody, that we won't have as much paper then needed from people. And so we kind of went up and down in that 48 account a little bit, because like Office 365 went down because there were 7 people last year, 6 people this year, so we fluctuated. And so we only went up a total of $1,745 once everything kind of fluctuated up and down. then 61, the insurance, you'll see that that was kind of a bigger decrease. That is mainly because all our vehicles are older in our department. So we don't need full insurance anymore and just kind of went down to liability, is my understanding. Office supplies, we did go up $2,000, 18.52%. That fluctuates each year based on essentially how many computers are in rotation. So last year we had 2 in rotation, this year we have 3. So that's where that extra $2,000 is, because of the extra computer that we need to replace. And then 84, that's the asset management implementation essentially. So that is where we did a 100% reduction, because I'm not asking for anything more. We've kind of finagled the dollars to get what we needed in this budget year. If there's any questions?
With that machinery and equipment, you said that's the asset management portion?
Correct.
Is that gonna come back up again in future budgets, or is that something you're able to eliminate moving forward?
No, that 84 account, that was for
Yeah.
the implementation essentially.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right, thank you.
So you'll just see that in the, what was it, the 64, no, 48 account for the annual fee at this
I
point.
see,
Yeah.
okay.
Other thoughts or questions?
Any additional questions for Val? Any questions from the audience members? All right, I need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the planning budget to the July 22nd, 2025 budget review work session meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yeah.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Lengy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
All council members present voted in the affirmative, motion carries.
That moves us on to item number 13. We'll be discussing the library's budget.
All right, good evening, Mayor
Jessica
and
is
Council.
going to talk to us tonight.
Sorry, didn't mean to
You
interrupt.
came up quick, yeah?
I'm Jessica Chamberlain, I'm the library director, here to present the library's budget for this year. In our personnel costs, you see an increase of that 3.92%, same things that all the other divisions have been talking about with compensation study, cost of living adjustments. In our operating supplies and materials, we actually have a decrease of 6.05% there, and that was an intentional cut on our part to lower the amount of our materials, like the books and materials that we buy next year, in order to help balance out the costs in the budget. It's a tough decision, but we wanted to make a cut that we felt like we could manage for this year, as long as it's not sustained over the course of a long time. You know, this is something we think we can spread out throughout the course of the year and have minimal impact on the citizen, while still trying to do our due diligence, helping try to make, balance the budget where we can. Down in utilities and maintenance, the big changes there are in our building, ground, and plant maintenance. There's an extra $25,000. $20,000 of that is updates to our meeting room AV system. Some of the connections in there are old, they're getting unreliable. We're having people complain that they can't connect their computers. And when people have meetings in those spaces, they want those spaces to work. They want them to be reliable because they've got people counting on them. So we talked with the company that installed that system, and this was the most cost-effective way we could kind of level up the system and give it some updates. The other increase then is in that 48 under office equipment maintenance, and the bulk of that $8,000 increase is to upgrade. We have 2 self-check machines. They both run Windows 10, which is end of life, so we need to upgrade both of those to Windows 11. So that's the bulk of that cost you see there. In our legislative affairs, we have just a small increase in public relations. Our travel and training goes up to $2,104. $2,000 of that is an additional, we offer tuition reimbursement for our staff at $2,000 a person per year. I have a newer employee who's going to get his master's degree in library science this fall, so I'm very happy for him and see him pursue his education, and so that is budgeting for him to get that tuition reimbursement. Our dues have gone down, not a significant amount, but it looks like a big percentage. Let's see, in other administration and overhead, you can see our big decrease there is in line 66, that computer service. Last year, we had to budget $31,000 to upgrade all of our public computers to Microsoft Office, the newer version. Brad and I were able to work together and do that for significantly less, which was great, but this year that cost isn't needed at all. So you see that $31,000 of that reduction is what that is for. So we're not asking for any capital outlay this year, so overall, our whole budget ask is an increase of 1.23%. Happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Any additional questions for Jessica? Any additional questions from the audience? Okay, if not, I need a, sorry, I should have memorized it. Need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the library budget to the July 22nd, 2025 budget review work session meeting.
So moved.
Second. We have two motions and a second.
Second.
Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Lengy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yep.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, and item 14, fire budget. Chief Rogge will present to us, starting on page 102.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tim Rogge, Fire Chief. Appreciate your time this evening for all divisions and willing to hear us out and help work it through a difficult time here in the city. So I'll do my best to summarize fire situation right now, the asks and some of the things we're trying to do. Obviously, the biggest thing that's going to jump out to you when you see our budget this evening is personnel costs. There's a few different factors, most that you've heard about this evening, from the COLA to the compensation study, to the potential for adding staffing. Toward the end of this document, and I'll get to that, you'll see a line item that says pending SAFER grant approval. We've known we needed to add staff for approximately 5 years, immediately after the pandemic. And one of the things we've been exploring all during that time was the adequate fire and emergency response SAFER grant. That's a federal grant designed to help add staffing and have compensation for a period of 3 years, and then have a transition plan for the municipality or the city to take over that funding at the end of 3 years. So each of the last few years, we've been, like I said, looking into that. We got a grant writer in Lexipol who we paid. It was just a little over $5,000 to help us write this grant, and we submitted our grant application last Friday. We'll hopefully have an answer by mid-August as to whether or not we were successful with that grant. This year was the first time that grant required a match for fire service. It had always been 100% covered for the first 3 years. This year, they changed that, of course, the year we put in, to 25% match year 1 and 2, 65% year 3. So still a pretty substantial grant. Should we be successful, I'm very hopeful that we get that. But that's why you see some increase in personnel cost. A lot of that is just pending the ability to hire. We have, as recently as this past week, we've got a certified list, a very, very strong list with good potential hires should we be successful with this grant. So I just wanted to give you a recap on that there. Going through the budget directly, not a lot has changed as far as our day-to-day operations. I'm on page 104 or enclosure 14. Again, as you look through our personnel costs, that's what you'll see the most. We did eliminate one part-time summer help position. That was a position we had been using for mosquito fogging, and then we changed the hourly rate when Faith retired in case we had to have Faith come back in and help just on a temporary basis to transition our new administrative assistant into that role. That was just for the first year. So we've eliminated that altogether because the fogging has gone to parks, so we have no need to keep that as a line item in our budget anymore. Beyond that, there weren't any changes as far as the personnel cost until you get to page 105, and that's where our pension changes come into play that are driven by legislature. Moving on to Page 106, that's where you get into our fuel, vehicle, and lube. Those are driven by variables that are provided to us. Minor apparatus and tools, there aren't many changes there. We did increase our bunker gear in account 26 a little bit. Chief O'Brien has been doing a great job of making sure the team have a adequate set of bunker gear, and we're trying to make sure that each has a second set of bunker gear as part of a cancer prevention movement that's been ongoing in the fire service. So what you see there is to buy things like bunker coats, bunker pants, boots, helmets, and such that have around a 8 to 10 year life expectancy. Moving on to the next page, which is 107. One of the things that looks new specifically in account 26 toward the top of the page is Wildland / USAR boots, 35 pair. That is to outfit all of our full-time staff with a basically an urban wildland fire / extrication type boot. So we, for years and years, had just bunker gear, which has an outer and an inner layer for thermal protection. Now we have bunker gear and we have wildland gear. So on days like today where it's 95 and you go to fight wildland fire, you're not wearing your structural turnout gear, but we've never had the footwear to go along with it. We've had the individuals switch out their boots depending upon the type of call coming in. So that's what we're trying to do there. Moving down into EMS supplies, or account 29, we have a line item there for ballistic vests 8 and helmets 4. This is to change out some of the inserts that we already own as far as our ballistic vests, and then add some helmets to better mirror what law enforcement is doing on those kind of dicey calls. And you've heard of one recently in Idaho that there was some unfortunate circumstances, not that they would have been donned in this gear, but if we have calls that come in as suspicious, our team are putting their vests on as of today and the last few years. Page 108. Again, not a lot of changes there. We reduced the amount of concrete funds that we had in there from 20 down to 15. That's trying to maintain training tower facility, Station 1 and Station 2 concrete needs. We work closely with the street department. They do a great job working with us as far as helping get those needs met. Nothing much as far as accounts on page 109, 48 and 49. There's nothing much as far as that's changed from year to year. 49 always stands out because that's our contract that we have for the radios citywide, so each of us has a big number in there. Travel and training, I know that's kind of been a hot topic, so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have with that. Within there, we have a $20,000 EMS director support. That is the paramedic program director at Northeast Community College. We contribute $20,000 to the salary of that position and have done so for the last probably 5+ years in order to help that program continue to be successful. It directly affects us. We have 3 people in paramedic school right now out there and 2 more starting this fall. And then every year we have paramedic refresher at the college that we get at a discounted rate because of our contributions to that program. So that's continued to be a very good thing for us. Beyond that, we get into our capital outlay. We deferred and then got rid of altogether several items from last year and this year, trying to do our part along with all the other divisions to help offset some of the expenditures and the difficult decisions that we know you have coming. The bunk room remodel is at Fire Station 1. We have a floor plan to turn that into more compartmentalized individual stations for the providers instead of the open format that was in the traditional fire service. A topper for one of our existing Ford pickups to help get some of our command equipment into the back of that vehicle so it's easily deployed. And then a powered stair chair. Those are used for moving patients up and down stairs. So that's to replace a manual stair chair. And then the last one on capital outlay is a headset for our busiest engine. The headset that we have on there is no longer functioning. So that is everything that I have for you. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What do you know about the grant?
So the deadline for everyone in general to apply was July 3rd, or is July 3rd. August 18th is the date that they gave us that you should hopefully have an answer by. The grant writer told us they said the same thing last year. It ended up being the end of August before they handed those out, but it would be effective right away if we're successful. So our grant writer felt really good about it. We have a very compelling case here with our call volume. This grant is largely driven by your ability to respond to fires with a full engine, meaning 4 people in an engine company. And we don't have, our ability to do that is very limited with the call volume that we have, especially our emergency medical calls. So we have a very good argument to add 1 per shift, total of 3 personnel, and that actually puts us in compliance. That also, just having those 3 personnel would have made us even closer to an ISO 1 rating. That was one of the major factors that kept us from earning an ISO 1, was just our initial response to fires. So hope it comes through. We need it. So.
Tim, with that grant, what's that cover? Just
I don't know if you want to chime in at all, Randy, but it covers personnel costs. It doesn't cover things like uniforms, but it covers your salary, your insurance, those types of things for those 3 individuals. The grant covers 75% on years 1 and 2, and then what we've done is calculated a match based on a total benefits package for a new hire. We've calculated 25% in year 1 and 2. So what you would see in here is 25% basically of 3 positions. So I can't remember. I think it was, I want to say just under 190,000 a year for the first 2 years is what the grant would provide us for assistance, and then that drops down on year 3.
out of your call volume, do you code your calls? What's the bulk of your calls at the fire station?
We code them as fire and rescue. So right now, a fire call, so we had 3,512 calls last year.
Yeah.
451 were fire, and the remainder of those calls, I think that number's 3,061, were rescue calls. So that's all encompassing everything else: car crashes, lift assists, heart attacks, strokes, all those types of things. So
Do you break those out?
we break them down much further in our annual report, so it gets more specific into the actual type of calls.
Okay.
Hazmat is another one. We break it down into hazardous materials. So we actually started doing that more this year based on feedback from council to break it down into further categories. So
Thank you.
you bet.
Your safety record must be pretty good. Your workers' compensation payments are down quite a bit, 13%.
The team
As
does
opposed to the library, which is up 27%, so.
I'm not getting involved in any of those discussions, but it's
But
above my
that
pay
just
grade.
shows a really good track record of safety.
Yeah, the team's careful. They're very careful. They control what they can. We've had a couple unfortunate incidents that have knocked people out during training, but by and large, they're pretty careful.
Good job.
That OSHA subscription that you subscribe to, what, does every department do that, or?
I can't speak for other
Or do
departments.
they use that same subscription through the fire department?
Is that the 3 ring binder? There's a
Yes.
couple other divisions that do have it.
Yes.
Not across the board.
All right.
Any question for Chief Froggy? Anybody, any questions for Chief Froggy out there? All right, seeing none, I need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the fire budget to July 2025, or July 22nd of 2025, budget review work session meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Langy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yep.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, we're on to item 15, the Regional 11 budget, and Bobby is going to lead us with that.
Hi, Council. I'm Bobby Reiser. I'm the Regional 11 Emergency Manager. I cover Antelope, Pierce, and Madison County, which includes the city of Norfolk. And how it breaks down for my budget is 23% of it is paid by Madison County, 17% is paid by Pierce County, 20% is paid by Antelope County, and 40% is paid by the city of Norfolk. So that's kind of how that works. Yeah, you do. Okay, so this page that we got up, I can't read the number. What is it? Is it 2? If you look at the miscellaneous federal grants, EMPG, from last year, which was 40,000, and this year is 60,000. Last year, we only put in 40,000 because that's what we typically had gotten. And unexpectedly, this year, we got 62,000. What ended up happening, I guess, is the state decided not to allow folks like Lincoln and Omaha to have 7 to 10 of their folks to get this grant. They only allowed one director. So for us little guys, it helped bump ours up more. So that's where that changed. So I put in for this year, again, 60,000. If the grant doesn't get cut, which it is one of them that's on the chopping block with the current FEMA climate, and that, the way that's going now, so cross our fingers and hope. When we go to the next page, we have the typical personnel cost increase. Same thing everybody else has been saying about the comparability and the COLA and all that. If you go to number 29, there's an extra $100,000 in here, but that's actually just a pass-through fund. What it is, it's a mini grant. We do this every 2 years, and we offer it on the odd years. So this year is 2025. We'll offer it about in the fall, and we offer it to all the first responders in the 3 counties. And it's approximately 100,000, and out of that, the percentages go accordingly. So the city of Norfolk gets 40% of that, Antelope gets 20% of it, and respectively. So that's kind of where that goes, and it all passes through, and it's wonderful. So that is not actually a budget item other than a pass-through. If you go down to 48 on office equipment and maintenance, that is the typical things that Brad in IT has been having us put in there for Facebook, whatever, archiving and that kind of thing. Insurance on number 61 went up a little bit. Same type of thing. It's, what does it say? Increases in liability and property insurance. And that's about all I have, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Why does Norfolk carry 40% of the?
I was told it was based on, this is all decided prior to me having this position, but I was told it was based on population and property valuation, so.
How often does that get reevaluated?
I don't know. I'd have to find out and let you know.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
Any other questions for Bobby? Or Scott, were you gonna add it to that?
Yeah, the 40%,
40%.
yeah, do you know?
I don't know that it's ever been, I mean, that was established originally based on population valuation, and that's been the formula ever since.
When it started, maybe?
Be a good thing to research when we come back on the 22nd.
Sounds good.
Have an answer.
Yep, will do.
Whether it's changed or not is a good question to get answered.
Yeah.
Look at the other regions too.
I can find out.
As long as Norfolk goes down, don't worry about the
Okay.
reevaluation, it goes up.
I'll do my
I'm
best.
afraid it's gonna go the opposite is what it's gonna do, so.
Noted.
Yeah, leave that one alone.
Other questions from
Any other questions? Anybody from the audience tonight? No? Okay, so, that being said, I need a motion and a second to postpone the recommendation of the Region 11 budget to the July 22nd, 2025 budget review work session meeting.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Lengy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, at this time, we'll be bringing item number 4 and 5 back in front of us. Again, that was the budget overview and the general fund revenue budget. For additional questions. All right, so what's that, I'm sorry?
Do you think we need to hammer out COLA tonight?
Any other questions?
So I just noticed the lodging tax, that's, I mean, we had it years back when we did Memorial Field. We're gonna institute it again.
Right, that is, I saw that in here too, I guess that's a good question for Randy, that was put in, it was, approximately, go back to the start, 400,000.
400, yeah.
And what
Yeah.
potentially was that supposed to cover, that lodging tax? At 4%?
This 4% would, it'd be the same type of tax we had when we did the recreation improvements that we used to pay off the bond issue. It would apply to hotels, and technically, I think it's supposed to apply to Airbnb type places too. If it's, I believe it's under 30 days, they're supposed to pay that lodging tax.
We haven't had any kickback on it then yet so far. I mean, we got a lot when we did it at Memorial Field, but we had a poster child to use it for too.
And this is something that the mayor and council doesn't have to have put to a vote of the people.
Right.
They can just implement that themselves if you guys want.
Randy, is that money, how much money are we spending out of general to promote tourism or recruit people to come into the community to?
I had a report ran on the rec facilities cost. Do you remember where that's at? Let me, but that wouldn't be all of it. I think that showed about 180,000 on rec facilities. But, you know, you've got, like the river, Whitewater Park, we've got costs related to that, Johnson's Park. It'd really be hard to put a good number to what we spend on that, but I would guess it's more than 400,000, but like I say, it'd be difficult to actually come up with a solid number.
Randy, I got a question just on the property taxes. We have almost $500,000 increase. Is that just due to valuations, or is there any change to a levy on that?
What we've got budgeted for property tax is keeping the levy rate the same and letting it increase with the valuation.
Thank you.
What was the anticipated use of the lodging tax?
Just going to general fund revenues. We did not have a specific items picked out to spend that for. It'd be just general fund revenue.
I think if we're gonna add 4% on top of the current 4%, that 400,000 should be used to generate revenue for our hotels and for tourism. It should be designated to go somewhere in that realm, so we're not just already putting another tax on a hurting industry, in my opinion. We should have something earmarked for that.
If we designate it to something, if it's going to help close the budget gap we had, it would have to be something that we're already spending from general fund revenues, or it would still have another $400,000 gap in the general fund.
My issue with it is if we have a $481,000, if we're needing to realize the property valuations in the tune of $481,000 to help fill in the budget gaps, and then we implement a tax, and that's $881,000 of extra revenue that we're bringing in. I just have a hard time implementing that other $400,000 if property taxes are we're gonna take an additional $481,000 from property tax.
Okay, any additional comments?
Jim McKenzie. Again, it's on. There you go. It's a 24.88% tax increase on the citizens of Norfolk. That's what the budget shows. That's what our citizens are gonna realize if all this passes as it is. That's a huge increase to ask. And it's also, we've had policy decisions that have been made over the last many years that have contributed to this. And these increases they're not even a Band-Aid. They'll plug a hole for 1 year, but it doesn't fix the structural issues of our budget. It doesn't fix our spending level versus our revenue level. Next year, how are you gonna pay for a COLA, which is $500 or $800,000, whatever that is, unless property taxes increase dramatically? How are we gonna do that unless we structurally address our budget? It appears to me, and I could be wrong, but it appears to me that there were divisions that probably reduced a lot of their capital spending. And maybe somebody could answer that if that's true. And Lyle, I don't know if you know if that's true, if we cut capital items out.
Yeah, there was a list of stuff that got cut out.
So that's gonna come back. It's gonna come back next year. It's gonna come back the year after that. And so how are you gonna address that next year? Because unless sales tax increases dramatically, you got a COLA, you got capital items that have been put off. You now, if you implement the hotel tax, you've now taken one of your bullets away that you use to do projects, like a swimming pool or an athletic field. Because if you take that and throw it into general fund, you lose that ability to use that for those projects. So how are you gonna pay for those new capital, those big items in the future, if you've got a new hotel tax? Your current hotel tax is 5%, 4% county, 1% state. This would add another 4%, making it 9%. You add 7.5% sales tax, you got a 16.5% increase on your hotel when you stay in a hotel. How does that affect our competitiveness to attract events to the community? Does that affect that? I don't know. I'm not smart enough. The visitor people can maybe answer that, but it's something to consider. We've got other expenses. We've got the flood control certification. That's about $10 million. Principal and interest on that. Where's that gonna come from? You have no more revenue. How are you gonna pay for that? I just think we gotta look structurally at this budget. I'm glad you guys are entertaining this. I'm glad you didn't just approve everything tonight, because certainly it takes a bigger, deeper dive, and I appreciate you guys doing that. I do have some questions on this comparability study. You know, what communities were compared against? Was it metro communities? Was it out-state in Nebraska communities? Was it out-of-state communities? I mean, have any of you seen that study? And we're asking you to approve all those increases without ever seeing the study, to even know what it looks like. Maybe you have seen it, but I've talked to some of you and you haven't ever seen that. So I think that's unfair to ask you guys to approve all those comparability pay increases without ever having seen the study and know what communities you're comparing against, and if it's even legitimate. Cost of living increases, your Social Security is going up 2.5%. So those people are getting 2.5% increase, and they're being asked to pay for a 25% increase in taxes in the community. We can't keep doing that. Can't keep doing that. Somehow we've got to look at this thing structurally. You know, what are other, Jeff, you talked about how much you're trying to increase your pay and not able to do that. I mean, what is the pay increases of other average citizens in Norfolk? Is it going up by 4.5%, which is the 2.5% COLA and the 2% pension? I don't know. But it's a big increase on our citizens. I appreciate you guys looking at this. It's tough decisions because we're in a situation now with our budget that even if you approved all these increases this year, it's a short-term fix, and it really doesn't fix the structural issues in our budget. So we've got to take a look at it. Thanks.
Hey, Jim, just a quick question for you. And just because and this isn't, I'm not challenging you or anything like that, but I just want to point out for the record that, and I know there's other bigger scheme things, but when we look at sales tax and occupation and a hotel tax, that is not, that half of our sales tax is from out of town. So we're not really, okay, 40%, 30%, 25%. I don't care what the number you pick is.
yeah.
So I just want to make sure that everybody understands in the community that 4% hotel tax, unless you're staying at the hotel, it's not a tax on a citizen of Norfolk, because I have never stayed at a hotel when I've been a community member of Norfolk. I've stayed in when I was living outside of town or living in other states and countries. But, I just want to make sure, again, this is, Jim, I'm not challenging you at all. I just want to get on the record that, some of these taxes, it isn't really a 25% increase on the citizens of Norfolk, because a certain portion of that's going to be paid by people outside of Norfolk.
It's a great point, but and I appreciate that conversation, but I'll add some things. I mean, so you have workforce that comes here and stays in a hotel, and they're doing construction. They're gonna pass that hotel tax cost onto the construction company, which is gonna cost the citizen who buys that property or pays for that construction additional monies. So it does hit us indirectly. We're not staying there, but you can bet that paying those extra taxes, all those businesses that are paying that, it's gonna hit them. Nucor Steel has people coming in and staying in a hotel, it affects their budget. And then they have to determine how much can we increase our employees' pay, because I realize that's probably a tiny amount of their budget, but that ripples through. We can't hide it and say it doesn't affect us, it really does. But great question, great conversation. Thanks.
All right, so tonight, obviously, it was what? Oh, come on up.
Just expand a little bit on what Jim said. The hotel tax will affect events. Me knowing the dog world, it will affect them. That's a lot to ask, and I travel all over, and I think that would be more than anywhere I've stayed. So just keep that in mind, that it does affect everybody. And if it affects a certain percentage of families that come into this town or whatever, that affects the overall money spent for everybody. So just keep it in mind and do what you have to do, but make sure you do the right thing. Thank you.
David, could you state your name for the record, please?
I didn't?
No, sir.
David Jansma.
Thank you.
Just so everybody knows, this was just a budget review session this evening, and so everything was given to us with the intent to review and come back on the 22nd. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the 22nd, we'll go over these again, these items. On the 10th, we'll have our additional departments that'll be in front of us, and we will be reviewing those again push to the 22nd, where we'll make the recommendation for council approval. That'll then become from the council, and we'll vote on that. So we do have some time. So I would suggest, if you have concerns and ideas, to get your information to Randy as soon as possible. And so when we do come back on the 22nd, we're reviewing kind of where you guys are at and where everybody's at. So I appreciate all the comments tonight. Good discussion.
Do you want a motion to move the general?
Oh, sorry, yeah. I was just moving along. Thank you.
I'll make a motion
I
to
will
move the
be-
general fund to the January 22nd meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. Roll call, please.
Arns?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Lengy?
Yes.
Hildebrand?
Yes.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, and that'll conclude this evening. I want to thank staff for their time and effort in putting their department budgets together. I know this is a challenging budget, more challenging than we've probably seen in a lot of years. So thank you for putting this together and working through the process. It's a lot of work for all you guys, and it takes a lot of time to put together. So appreciate that. Thanks.